Chapter 241 Consolation. Don't go, you don't have to worry about this matter, there is still more than a month, and I have time to deal with it. Chen Shi waved his hand, he already planned to make a whole dress at that time. Anyway, give marriage, give Gui, give a night, this set of down, Li Yu will prepare a set of clothes even if it is not ashamed. Chen Shi said that there is no pressure. As for others who feel that it is not in accordance with etiquette, they will understand why when they are awarded a title. Oh. Fan Jian nodded. She thought that Chen Shi was going to go out to buy a dress. After all, Feng Gao's tailor shop was also powerful now, and it was not a hassle to make a prince's costume. Although she was a little unhappy that her husband would not wear clothes prepared by her relatives at that time, it was not easy to pay attention to these at this time. Take a good rest. I plan to go to Jingling Hall to see how the construction is going. Chen Shi patted Fan Jian's head and motioned that this guy didn't have to worry about these things. Why did a 15 or 16-year-old girl care about these things? Fan Jian shook his head unhappily, and the bun he untied during the break was disheveled, and it was obvious that he was a little dissatisfied with Chen Shi treating her as a child. HMPH. Come back early. Fan Jian said unhappily. Don't worry, I'm leaving. Chen Shi waved his hand and prepared to leave. In addition to the Jingling Hall, he also had to go to the library and Liu Bei's house, and as a quality supervision and inspector, he had to go to see how it was built. To be honest, for Liu Bei's home, Chen Shi's opinion is that as long as it doesn't fall down, it can be inhabited. The outside is brilliant and shining, and Chen Shi doesn't pay much attention to the materials inside. Anyway, in his opinion, Liu Bei's home is a face-saving project, at most with some educational significance, and the rest are floating clouds. All in all, as long as it looks magnificent enough. It's shocking enough, so the tiles of Liu Bei's house are all colorful. If they are colorful, it seems to be because of the level problem, obviously the same thing, and it will be different when burned. Then go down to the library, which is relatively important. But that's it, what matters inside is the book, not the decorations. The luxury of the construction is just to show that there is a golden house in the book, and there is a beautiful jade in the book. In fact, all those decorations were removed, and the library is still a library. Upon reaching the Jingling Hall, this is what Chen Shi mainly went to check. This place is the place that needs the image the most, and the honor given to the dead must always be admired by the living. As the destination of all heroic souls, this place must be solemn enough, depressing enough, so that the living can feel a feeling of being watched by the soul when they come here. Of course, I don't know if it can be achieved. Chen Shi's request at the beginning was one sentence, and the soil on the ground will be black for me at that time. The bricks pasted on the road are also black for me, and the black ones should reflect me. Only the flowers on the left and right sides are planted with flowers on the other side, red on the left and white on the right, which is the atmosphere. Black bricks, black walls, black pillars, the entire Jingling Hall was black to the end, and finally all the things hung turned white again. Anyway, there were no other colors except black, white, and red in this place. Chen Shi felt that there should be no big problem with his aesthetics. Liu Bei saw the black wall from a distance, and the whole person's movements couldn't help but slow down, and took a few more steps. Everything including the ground became pitch black, slightly against the sun, not looking gloomy, but a little cold. Big brother. Zhong Fei's voice reached Liu Bei's ears, and it was not the deafening explosion before, but quite low. Third brother, sure enough, you are guarding here. I didn't expect you to know how to restrain your heart. Liu Bei smiled and said, no one is making trouble. I don't know why, after arriving here, I couldn't help but be a lot more careful, and so did my soldiers. Eldest brother, come with me to burn incense for the memorial monument. Zhong Fei scratched his head and said, I'm about to come to see the building of this Jingling Hall. Ida, you are stationed here, but you have found anything wrong with this building? Liu Bei nodded, and then asked. Sichuan is very good. Zhong Fei took Liu Bei and his party to the Jingling Hall inside, and then stayed in front of the black wordless stele more than 10 meters high. Zhong Fei carefully took out a few incense sticks from the side and lit them and handed them to several people. Liu Bei and others took the incense, bowed 3 times to the giant stele, and their hearts were peaceful and inserted into the clay pot in front of the stele. I don't know why I felt peaceful in my heart after arriving here, and I unconsciously lowered my voice. Zhong Fei looked at the huge black wordless stele and said in despair, the original strong body, strong figure, and dark face also exuded a literary and artistic atmosphere when Zhong Fei looked up. Me too. Liu Bei stretched out his hand on Zhong Fei's shoulder, and also stood there and looked up at the huge black wordless stele. At this moment, both of them felt a kind of tranquility that they had never felt before, and after a long time, Liu Bei stretched out his hand and picked up another stick of incense and lit it into the clay pot. All the heroic souls stationed in the Jingling Hall, please rest in peace. I, Liu Xuande, will take care of the affairs behind you for you. I will do my best to let your parents, wives, and children enjoy everything they deserve. If I, Liu Xuande, know that your wives, children, and parents have been treated unfairly, but do not reach out to help. I, Liu Xuande, am willing to sacrifice myself to all the spirits, heaven and earth, and gods." Liu Bei's face was calm, as if he was talking to a person, and he slowly said his oath to the memorial monument. Accurate. There was a leisurely sound echoing between heaven and earth, but I don't know where it came from. It was erratic, but only a few people present could hear it. For this sound, Liu Bei and a few people couldn't help but be stunned, but there was not much shock, just silently bowed to the memorial monument. After Liu Bei and a few others withdrew from the front yard of Jingling Hall, an old man with crane hair and a childlike face appeared at the main entrance of Jingling Hall. Liu Xuande is indeed a benevolent person, and it is not in vain that I went to Mount Tai from Lujiang to take a look, and I don't know what trouble I will have on behalf of the heavens. Zhuo Xi said to himself, reaching out and habitually pinching it. Have you lost your life? But it doesn't matter. To see such a virtuous and benevolent king, there is still hope for great governance in this world. Zhuo Xi said indifferently, accustomed to seeing the joys and sorrows, and has taken his own life and death very lightly. Born in the Han dynasty, he does not have too much Taoist ruthlessness, but he still has an expectation for this world, hoping that this and family can continue. Picking up a stick of incense, Zhuo Xi calmly lit it, then inserted it into the clay pot, and faintly recited the Song of Death in the era of witchcraft. When Chen Shi came in, there was still half a burning incense in the clay pot, and he could vaguely hear a peaceful song in his ears, and he couldn't help but frown. Who's here? Chen Shi frowned in front of the memorial monument and said, he couldn't see it, but he could feel that there was a person standing there, although it was a little scary, but the fact was that it was like that, there was definitely a person standing there. There was no answer, but Chen Shi vaguely felt that the calming song fluctuated. Chen Shi instantly had a bottom in his heart. He was very afraid of that kind of unknown life, but he was not afraid of the intelligent life that could be perceived. Chen Shi, who had a good heart, avoided the place where Zhuo Xi was standing, took a stick of incense and lit it, bowed to the memorial monument, inserted it into the clay pot, and then quietly waited for the end of the song. Marquis Chen, Zhui Yuan is polite here. After the incense burned, the song disappeared, and there was a crane-haired Taoist priest who had been staring at Chen Shi, bowing to Chen Shi. Zhui Yuan Fang? Chen Shi was stunned for a moment, and then reacted and bowed to Zhuo Xi. Chen Zichuan has seen the head of the sacrifice. It's easy to say, it's easy to say. Zhuo Xi said calmly, staring at Chen Shi's face and constantly calculating. But every time there was a slight result, it was blurred, and he could only use the simplest way to see that Chen Shi was indeed precious. Since the head of the sacrifice has arrived at Mount Tai, why should I hide here, for fear that I will not be well entertained? Chen Shi said with a smile, for these immortals and gods in memory. Chen Shi was very calm. Not to mention that from the records, Zhuo Xi admires Liu Bei very much. Even if Chen Shi and Zhuo Xi are at odds, he is not afraid of each other. The most orthodox immortal in China will not shoot against mortals, let alone those who have meritorious service to the world. Chen Shi is confident, even if he doesn't know how much merit he has, but a sentence of millions of living people is estimated to be no problem. Chapter 242, Losing the Mystery. Zhuo Xi looked at Chen Shi curiously, not seeing the slightest or in Chen Shi's eyes, but a little as if seeing the arrogance of rare animals made Zhuo Xi a little chilled. I can't be kind to people outside the world, even if I'm invited to Mount Tai. Why bother the officials? But Chen Hu is not worried that I will have any bad thoughts about Mount Tai. Zhuo Xi shook off the dust and said with an incomprehensible smile on his face. Being able to sing the requiem here, I don't think it's a malicious person. I'm saying that if the Taoist priest is an immortal, he will definitely not attack me. If the Taoist priest is a mortal, I have my own means to protect myself. Chen Shi said indifferently, staring curiously at Zhuo Xi's black duster. Where are there any immortals? They are just people who ask for immortality. Zhuo Xi sighed and said, I can wait. If you people of this kind of material are willing to learn, they are no less than me. Oh, thank you Taoist priest for clarifying your doubts. Chen Shi nodded, and with Zhuo Xi's words, Chen Shi was completely relieved. Since Zhuo Xi, a relatively powerful character who is enough to be recorded in the legends of immortals in later generations, is just a person who asks for immortality, Chen Shi has a bottom, and since he came to this world, he has been worried about the trouble of those immortals in history and legends. You must know that the 400 years of the two Han dynasties are actually unharmed in terms of general history and the original history, although there is a slight difference, but in the end it still fell into the situation of the Yellow Turban Uprising at the end of the Eastern Han dynasty, which made Chen Shi not suspect that it was impossible for someone to deliberately interfere in history. Although Chen Shi found that many things happened by coincidence after studying history carefully, it was in line with common sense. This made Chen Shi not very sure whether he was interfered with, or whether the general trend of heaven had run to that extent, and now there was a sentence from Zhuo Xi. Chen Shi was relieved. It turned out that the immortals recorded at the end of the Han Dynasty were always human. As long as it is a person, Chen Shi is relieved. As long as it is still in the category of a person, Chen Shi will not worry about what kind of obstruction these masters will cause to him. What he is most afraid of is the inaction of heaven, but a group of immortals must break history back to its original form. You must know that Chen Shi has deliberately tested the situation before, and the situation he has interfered with will go in the other direction as long as no one intervenes. Coupled with the experience summed up by the previous 400 years of history, that is to say, the torrent of history and the general trend of the way of heaven. Although there is an idea of maintaining the original operating law, when there is a situation that cannot be smoothed out by a reasonable method, it will be left to its own merit. To put it simply, Chen Dao doesn't care if he feels troublesome. Chen Shi goes to toss at will. Anyway, whoever wins and loses can be regarded as completing this period of history for Chen Dao. In other words, everything doesn't matter to the way of heaven. For the so-called big things of mortals, it doesn't matter at all to them. If you want to make history, I won't stop you, you can go. After summarizing these things, Chen Shi shifted his thinking from the original history to another group of people. That is, those strangers and alchemists. Maybe they would jump out to maintain the original situation. After all, too many books write that immortals are ruthless and desireless, and it doesn't matter how many people die for their own avenue, as long as you can attain enlightenment and ascend. What masters, sisters, and apprentices die when they die, let alone mortals, who may not be of the same species in the eyes of those people. Although Chen Shi felt that there was a problem with that kind of immortals, the underworld gangs were more united than those immortal cultivation groups, but many of them were written like this. What if it was true? People just changed the XX immortal cultivation sect to XX gangsters and look down. There is no incongruity at all. What can you do? Maybe it's true. As a result, now this Zhuo, who can be said to be at the level of great power at the end of the Eastern Han Dynasty, has spoken. There are no immortals, at most a group of alien alchemists who ask for immortality. Chen Shi is relieved in an instant. As long as they are human, even if they have mastered some incredible skills, dare to jump out and oppose Chen Shi. Chen Shi is sure that every minute and second will let them understand what it means to be a person. It seems that Chen, who is in a good mood after hearing Lao Dao's words, Zhuo said with a smile, not very clear about Chen Shi's thoughts. He. Thank you, Taoist priest, for solving Shi's doubts. Chen Shi said calmly, the boulder in his heart has been moved to the side. No one can stop the surging trend. There is no immortal, which means that the alchemists who may come to make trouble at that time are just some tricks, and any military formation can be opened, and the other party can instantly know what strength is. I don't know why Chen Hu is happy, but if he doesn't mind, he will make the old Taoist happy. Zhuo curiosity seems to be not small. Chen Shi glanced at Zhuo lightly. What I'm happy about is that I'm finally sure to promote the prosperity of Mount Tai to the world, and the surging trend is unstoppable. Zhuo frowned. The Emperor of Troubled Times is not visible. No one can see who will become the last king. The world is in chaos during this period. Even if Zhuo's ability is extraordinary, it is not possible to count who will rule the world at that time. But now Chen Shi is so determined, Zhuo can't help but frown. Chen Hu also asked for caution. The way of heaven is impermanent, and who can see the end of troubled times? In my opinion, there are still nearly 100 years of chaos in this world before it can return to unification. As for what the surging general trend is, it has not yet appeared. Zhuo shook his head and said, several big stars have been revealed in this world, comparable to the chaotic period of the spring and autumn and warring states periods. Look, although Zhuo is proficient in metaphysics, the conclusions he actually came to are almost the same as those reached by Liu Yi, Guozhou and others, and they are not even as good as Guozhou. After all, Guozhou and Liu Yi can name the characters represented by these big stars as long as they have information in hand, as well as the future direction of these characters, possible collisions, etc. Taoist priest and rest. People outside the world will do what outsiders should do. The situation in the world is still up to us people. You go to find immortals and ask Taoism to do what you love, and we will do what we want to do. As for the so-called surging trend, it will be created by my hands after today. Chen Shi said with a strong confidence on his calm face. Zhuo was startled, feeling something in his heart in a trance, and when he calculated again, he found that it was slightly different from before, and looked at Chen Shi with a sigh. Chen Hu is a wizard. Maybe he can really do it, but I can't do it. But who can tell the impermanence of heaven tomorrow? I'll leave first, and I will greet General Zhong outside if I need anything to sacrifice to the head. I think there is a way to convince General Zhong of the sacrifice. Chen Shi glanced at Zhuo flatly, the alchemist who lost his sense of mystery, even if he had the power to surpass ordinary people. Chen Shi didn't feel anything to be awe-inspiring, waved his hand and turned around and planned to leave. The biggest gain today is that there is no fear of the immortal. Chen Hu is polite, and the poor Taoist has also taken his leave. After saying that, Zhuo turned into a cloud of smoke and disappeared on the spot. Chapter 243 The first phase of street children's education has a home. After Zhuoxi left, Chen Shi looked at the smoke that had not yet dissipated curiously, and a special feeling rose, as if there should be no problem with this hand to run away. Chen Shi, the main hall of Jingling Hall, did not go, just stood outside and looked at it. There was no cold feeling, on the contrary, there was a feeling of involuntary awe. I have to say that the ancient craftsmen were indeed very capable. Chen Shi just said a rough idea, they could express all the things Chen Shi requested. That's enough, no matter whether these things are counterfeit or not, as long as this glory is still shrouded and continues, it is enough. Chen Shi silently thought that as long as all the hearts that should be done are done, the military soul will slowly be cast. If the soldiers who fight to the death in the front, sing and dance in the rear, and shed every drop of blood for their family and country do not get the favor they deserve, and even shed tears after shedding blood, then how can they forge an invincible military soul? Rest in peace, I will do my best to give you everything you deserve, and the affairs behind you will be handled properly, and may the spirit of heaven see it. Chen Shi stood in the middle of the door and the giant monument and said calmly, the immortal god said that it was elusive? The theory of ghosts and gods is not credible. But sometimes people still need ghosts and gods as their last bottom line. After doing this, Chen Shi was ready to leave. There was nothing to see in the Jingling Hall. This was the home of the heroic soul. In addition to the sacrifice, there were also the proper caregivers, and there should be no living people to disturb here. Chen Shi slowly withdrew from the main gate of the Jingling Hall, and the soldiers guarding here clenched their fists at Chen Shi and stood calmly in place like a stone pillar. Passing through the street in front of the Jingling Hall and turning into the main street, Chen Shi, who was originally solemn, suddenly exhaled and reverted to the image of a hanging child again. It's really good. Even when I arrived at that place, I couldn't help but be affected. Chen Shi swept away the previous solemnity and said with a smile, if you can get this feeling, it would be better if you could reach it and the soul would be baptized again, and it would be better if you could be washed into a fanatical patriotic fighter or something. The above is just Chen Shi's delusion. Chen Shi is already very satisfied to reach this level. As for the feeling of stepping into the Jingling Hall as if the soul is baptized, it has to be worshipped with incense for thousands of years. It can only be done by carrying generations of heroic souls, and now it is probably to the extreme, and then it does not belong to the category of skills. The kid in front stopped me. When Chen Shi was about to wander to the library, he met an acquaintance on the street. Isn't this exactly what happened to Chen Shi a few months ago? The little devil who also took Chen Shi's wallet away. Looking at the current situation, it is obvious that they are looking for a target and preparing to attack. Chen Shi, who has strengthened his memory, has not forgotten it. At least he has seen the face, and he has paid attention to it, and he will never forget it no matter what, and it is not easy to tell Chen Lan if he loses his money bag. The little kid was stunned for a moment, and looked at Chen Shi with some puzzlement. Then he seemed to remember something. After all, the goal of stealing a pack of gold beads at a time was not the big fat sheep that could be encountered every year, so naturally the memory was still fresh. Yo, I still want to run. Chen Shi said unhappily, although he didn't bring Hua Xiong this time. But the guards still brought a few. Take down that little devil head for me. Just don't hurt the other person. Someone is going to rob someone. As soon as the little brat saw 3 or 5 big men pounced on Chen Shi beside him, he shouted loudly, take down that child. Chen Shi didn't bother to explain at all, and directly ordered his men to take down the other party, and his wallet was not so easy to steal. What is wrong with this child? Learn to be a thief, catch this little ghost, and the group of little ghosts, and then the first wave of street children's education can begin. Help! The child roared loudly, but Chen Shi was not moved at all, and the people around him did not intervene. Looking at Chen Shi's clothes, you can know that he was either rich or noble, and the child was obviously a wandering little beggar. In this case, as long as Chen Shi did not go too far, the people of the Han dynasty would not care too much. Of course, there is also the role of Chen Shi's sentence don't hurt him. If there is a sentence of life and death, now the onlookers will definitely rush up to stop Chen Shi. In this era, in addition to the strong crossbow cannot be private, the others pull out a gun, a knife, or something from the house is really not a problem. Everyone can play with both hands. The word Shangwu has long been engraved in the bones for hundreds of years. Look at the move. Seeing that no one was helping him, the child also knew what was going on, so he took out a stone from his arms and threw it at the big men behind him. Ha! Chen Shi touched his chin and was a little curious. His soldiers were also veterans of 100 battles, and there was no problem in dodging bows and arrows. Why was this kid so good at targeting? Every stone could hit his personal guards. Why is there another riot ahead? There are many businessmen, and it's quite troublesome. Liu Bei helplessly followed Xu Chu on the road. Fenggao is now crowded. If it was left in the past, this is a symbol of prosperity. But now Liu Bei finally understands why Chen Shi said that urban road planning, as well as the internal management of the city, is also very important. Obviously the street is so wide, it will still be blocked. Lord, it seems that the military division is arresting people. Shu Chu is big, has good eyesight, and is strong, so he can open up the flow of people, so that Liu Bei can follow behind. Naturally Shu Chu can see clearly, and Liu Bei can only see a wall of flesh. Zichuan is arresting people? Zhongkang, go up and help. Liu Bei said without thinking. As for asking Chen Shi questions, he will talk about it later. This little devil is too slippery. Chen Shi's eyebrows jumped wildly. You little beggar's inner chi is almost to reach the level of chi refining. Can you still play happily? Don't worry, military advisor, Zhongkang is here. Shu Chu roared, and then jumped up from the crowd like a big bear, flew directly in the direction of the little ghost, and lifted the child up. It feels so embarrassing. Chen Shi said helplessly. Chen Shi is the only one who is known as a military division in the entire Fengao city, and Shu Chu's body shape will not be forgotten once you see it. Everyone knows that this is Liu Bei's fierce general, Shu Chu, so now the young man in Chinese clothes who is standing in the crowd giving orders is naturally Chen Shi, and suddenly the field is quiet, staring at Chen Shi. Let go of me, you big fat man. The little beggar kicked Shu Chu's stomach wildly, and Shu Chu shook his hand indifferently, and the little beggar was a little wilted. Military division. Someone brought it. Shu Chu carried the child to Chen Shi's side like a chicken. Forget it, this is not the place to talk. Chen Shi reluctantly bowed his hands to the surroundings, and then took a few people to prepare to leave. Chapter 244 Sophistry, Quibbles. Chen Shi took Shu Chu through several streets and came to the restaurant opened by the Mi family, and the second child of the restaurant quickly reported to the shopkeeper when he saw Chen Shi coming. I've seen Chen Hu, I've seen General Shu. What do you want to eat? There is an elegant room upstairs. The shopkeeper said with his hands clasped. Well, Zhuangdegang will probably come later, so prepare 2 more dishes. By the way, boil a bucket of water, and wash this guy for me. Chen Shi waved his hand to signal that the other party could flash, and then seemed to think of something, pointing to the little ghost head carried by Shu Chu and said. It is said that the little devil head carried by Shu Chu doesn't have much struggle now, and it is estimated that he knows that it is impossible to break free from Shu Chu's shackles, and hangs dejectedly on Shu Chu's hand. Okay. The shopkeeper looked at the little beggar who looked like a mud monkey and nodded. Xiao take him to wash and comb and change clothes. What clothes to change? Turn on the heat and make him into soup for me. Remember to cook more and add some spices. Chen Shi turned his head and stared at the little devil head and said viciously. Don't, I don't want to turn into soup, I'm not delicious. The little devil who was originally waiting for Chen Shi to concoct in a despondent instantly screamed, and then bared his teeth and claws in Chen Shi's direction. This, Chen Hu, our restaurant doesn't have this business. The shopkeeper took out his handkerchief and wiped the sweat from his forehead, and blatantly said that he wanted to cook soup for a big living person, although he knew you were joking, but it affected the business, we didn't open a black shop. Just kidding. Chen Shi gave the little ghost with teeth and claws a head collapse and made him calm down for a while. This kid is very skinny, I haven't taken down 3 or 5 of my personal guards, and if I hand it over to you, it will probably slip away. So Zhongkang, you take a good look at this guy for me, prepare clothes for him, I have never seen this 12 or 13-year-old child who is so powerful. Okay. The shopkeeper was relieved. As long as it was not the cold work of boiling people in plain water, the shopkeeper felt that his restaurant could still take over. The little beggar who was carried by Shu Chu in his hand was relieved when he heard Chen Shi's words, and he was not struggling frantically, but just looked at Chen Shi pitifully. Marquis Chen, let me go, I didn't mean to. I have a lot of younger siblings to take care of, and I will pay you back when I have money in the future. Can you let me go? Who wants you to pay it back? Go to Zhongkang. Remember to brush me well with an iron brush. Chen Shi said viciously. The little beggar who has been wandering for many years also knows how to observe words and expressions. Obviously, Chen Shi didn't have much malice towards him, but his mouth was a little ruthless, but then Shu Chu's answer made the little beggar fall directly into hell. I will remember to brush it with an iron brush. Don't, let me go, I'll wash it myself. When Shu Chu walked towards the backyard with the little beggar, the shrill scream was too much like a kid who didn't want to take a bath and was forced to wash. It is said that a teenage child who crawls around and crawls all day does not look much different whether he is a beggar or not. It's all the same black. I'm disturbing your business. Chen Shi apologized to the shopkeeper after Shu Chu took the little kid away. Why does Chen Hu have to do this, please? Saying that, the shopkeeper made a gesture of invitation and asked Chen Shi to walk upstairs. Chen Shi sat on a chair by the window on the second floor and ate boiled meat that he didn't know whether it was mutton or what kind of meat. Anyway, Liu Bei still said whether he would come or not. Click. The door on the second floor opened, Liu Bei stepped in, and Li Yu also looked at Chen Shi, who was leaning against the window and looking into the distance with a helpless tone. Xuan de Gong. Chen Shi put his chopsticks on his small plate and asked with a smile. Zichuan, why did you make my residence so luxurious? Liu Bei had no intention of giving Chen Shi a good face, and asked with a face-to-face when he entered the door. Spending your own money to build a hometown for others will actually be criticized. This is really not good news, flattering the horse's hooves. Chen Shi said calmly, seemingly not caring about Liu Bei's tone at all. Xuan de Gong, it's better to take a seat. Some things are better to sit down and talk about it. Li Yu smiled and pressed Liu Bei to the first position on his left hand, which is the so-called main position. After sitting down, Liu Bei began to be indignant again, glaring at Chen Shi. Zichuan, don't you know to be simple? Such a big building, let people see that I, Liu Xuande, is not remembered as a lover of luxury. What to laugh at? You can't run away. Okay, we can't run away. Chen Shi said indifferently, Xuande Gong, you can live with you, don't worry about these things. There are 2 other buildings in that building that are all used as the symbol of Fenggao. Xuande Gong itself is the symbol of Fenggao, and it is natural to live in the landmark building. There is no problem. As for the expenses and phone bills, I only ask, is there any progress under the rule of Xuande Gong compared to before? Sophistry. Liu Bei glanced at Chen Shi contemptuously. He and Chen Shi had been intersecting for a long time, so naturally he knew how to deal with Chen Shi's sophistry. Then to put it another way, in fact, I built this building to record the great achievements of Duke Xuande. Chen Shi casually pulled a shield and gestured with Liu Bei. He fished out a piece of meat with a big spoon, got it into his own small plate, and then signaled Li Yu to eat and drink, and see how Chen Shi convinced Liu Bei. Liu Bei just felt that the living was too luxurious and a little unsightly, but not that he didn't want to live there, which was the so-called moral quality suppressed ***, and from this point of view, Liu Bei's morality was still good. The problem is that the people of the world have not been saved yet, not to mention anything else. Qingju still has more than half of it not saved. Liu Bei said speechlessly, he is still far away from the common people now. So such a palace was built for Xuan de Gong to live in, to warn Xuan de Gong, you see, only virtue can be lived by the common people, and you live in it now, you will definitely not feel at ease. If you want to feel at ease, you can only follow the virtue of the sages to be saved by the common people. The ancients said that if you are poor, you will be alone, and if you are successful, you will help the world. And now what you have to do is to help the world, and find a way to make you feel the wealth and nobility given to you. Chen Shi continued to quibble. Anyway, he knew that Liu Bei would definitely not be able to argue with him. But Liu Bei opened his mouth to defend. This is all the same. No, but the greater the wealth you enjoy, the bigger your vision will be. Just like a poor man's fantasy that His Majesty the Emperor eats white steamed buns and uses a golden hoe. The greater the wealth you enjoy, the heavier the things you have to carry, and it is extremely difficult to give everyone food and clothing, and few virtuous kings and capable ministers have been able to do it for thousands of years. Chen Shi continued to distort. He had successfully distorted the problems involved before, and the discussion of Liu Bei's personal luxury would become a matter of benefiting the world. Chapter 245. Even small things can be great. When he said this, Chen Shi seemed to have a golden light behind him, showing the glory that belonged to the sages, and Liu Bei also nodded incessantly. Xuan de Gong, the ancient sages pursued the people's food and clothing, and do we also focus on that level? Chen Shi asked indifferently. He has succeeded. As long as he continues to follow the line of thought, success is inevitable. Liu Bei has begun to recognize. Remember your oath. Chen Shi looked at Liu Bei with light in his eyes. This is the most important thing. Although it is difficult to provide food and clothing, I, Chen Zichuan, say a big thing. I can barely do it if I only want food and clothing, so don't we pursue the rest? We may not be able to let everyone live in that kind of mansion, but we should try to satisfy them. We must broaden their horizons and let them have higher pursuits. Liu Bei couldn't help nodding. He used to step on the frontier, traveled to several states and saw starvation with his own eyes, and felt that it was extremely difficult to have food and clothing. But when he had Chen Shi and came to Fenggao, Liu Bei at least dared to pat his chest and say, Lao Tzu let the people under his rule have food. This is also why Xu Chu ran away with Chen Shi. Chen Shi is not worried about Liu Bei being assassinated without guards. The reason is too simple, because this is the Taishan administrative office. This is Fenggao. Liu Bei only needs to say his identity. In this era of faith and filial piety, there are too many people here who are willing to die for Liu Bei. It can be said that Liu Bei is called benevolent in addition to Liu Yang's boasting, and a large part of the reason is that Liu Bei did do practical things. The rule did recognize Liu Bei, and such a thing as benevolence cannot be recognized by boasting alone. Let a group of people who almost starved to death eat enough and have a place to live. With money, I won't be sad about not having food to eat in the future, and the kindness in this is enough for these people to remember for generations. Well, not to mention generations, it is estimated that there will be no problem within 5 generations. Xuandagong, the people's vision is actually very small. All they can see is their own 1/3 of an acre of land, and they can't see anything in the long run, and the life they used to fantasize about is already a life they used to imagine. But is this kind of life good for you? Chen Shi asked rhetorically. Liu Bei thought about himself, who was now a prince, and then thought about the life of weaving straw sandals in the past, and couldn't help but shake his head. Now meat is cooked in a bronze cauldron. The gap in this is too big. How can it be calculated well? What was your wish to live at that time? Chen Shi looked at Liu Bei, who was shaking his head, and snickered. Food and clothing are worry-free, there is wine and meat. Liu Bei laughed. To this day he has achieved his goal, and looking back at the original wish, it is really cute, but it is so small. Zichuan, I understand. You mean that we can't just focus on the people in front of us. We have achieved worry-free food and clothing, and if we have the spare energy, we should do better. Just like the house you built for me, although it is only one now, it is a goal that allows everyone in the world to enjoy this kind of life. Liu Bei's face flashed with brilliance, and the rest of Chen Shi, needless to say, he had already made up for it. Li Yu swallowed a piece of meat with difficulty. Liu Bei's brilliance made him feel ridiculous that Liu Bei was fooled by Chen Shi, but it shocked him, and he turned his head to look at Chen Shi's expression and knew that Liu Bei had been fooled, but Li Yu couldn't say to Liu Bei that Chen Shi is just fooling you. I would like to follow you. My humble wish is compared with your grand aspiration. I am willing to follow you forever, to witness the coming of that glory. Li Yu picked up the wine glass, saluted Liu Bei, and then drank it all. He finally understood why he was infected by Liu Bei's charm, so silly and silly, but it was extremely real. That's what it means. Chen Shi made a look of being infected by Liu Bei, but I don't know what he actually thought. Anyway, Chen Shi is not so easy to be moved. Okay, the place where I will live in the future will be called Keji Hall. I, Liu Xuanda, am not qualified to live there, but since I live there, I will work hard to achieve that qualification. Liu Bei preached enthusiastically, and it seemed that he had begun to enter a state of full anger again, but unfortunately the 2 people next to him did not cooperate much. Xuandagong, work hard, I will always forge ahead in that direction. Our goal is very ambitious. Chen Shi said with a solemn face, finally fooling and lame. He couldn't let Liu Bei react, and it was the king to continue to immerse himself in his own world. Liu Bei picked up his wine glass and stood by the window to watch the flow of people below, turned his head to the 2 of them and said, we are still very far away, even in this prosperous Fengao. There are too many refugee beggars. Zichuan, let's focus on this smallest place first, and give the people the most basic food and clothing and health first. No problem, I'm already dealing with this aspect. It seems that Xuandagong has not paid less attention to the problems existing under our rule for a period of time. In fact, Xuandagong, if you have a lot of time, you can ask the people about their own feelings when you are wandering. Instead of relying on your own feelings, their feelings are what we need, because the angle of standing is different. And it is difficult for us to consider the other party's feelings in some details. When Chen Shi heard Liu Bei mention this aspect, he couldn't help but have a smile on his face, and Liu Bei could notice these problems, indicating that Li Yu was indeed teaching Liu Bei about the ruling side. It does make sense. Think about it. The angle of looking at problems from the common people in Zhujian has been too different from that of the common people in Zhujian in the past. Liu Bei nodded in agreement with Chen Shi's statement. I will pay attention to this aspect. But what does it mean that Zichuan has already begun to deal with it? I have begun to solve this aspect. After all, everything is step by step, and now it is time to arrange a home for these people, and the academies, children's age-appropriate education, military discharge, welfare and other issues mentioned before are finally put on the bill. Chen Shi said, half explained, half proudly. Liu Bei also knew that there were still so many problems under his prosperous and peaceful rule. How did I not know that there were so many problems under my rule? Liu Bei was a little dumbfounded. In his memory, his rule was definitely the first among all the princes. When did so many problems occur? The problem has always been there, but it is not a priority, and it is nothing to deal with it to this extent. But there may be hidden dangers in the future, so I am removing these hidden dangers step by step. Chen Shi didn't feel anything about Liu Bei's dumbfounded look at all. After all, if Liu Bei didn't pay attention to these political affairs, they would pass soon and would not attract attention at all. Chapter 246, Chen Shi's Juvenile Education. Chen Shi's words once again made Liu Bei incomprehensible, but the good thing about Liu Bei is that if he doesn't understand, he can't understand, and he won't pretend to understand. As long as he is someone he trusts, he will be very relieved to hand over the whole thing to the other party to solve, anyway, as long as it is solved at that time. Zhuandegang should eat something first. I'll explain it later. After all, this is still quite troublesome. Chen Shi pointed to the dishes on the table and said, if you don't eat it, it will be cold. Click. The door was opened again, and Xiao brought a large plate of mutton. It seemed that he also knew when not to disturb and when to serve the food. As for hearing things that should not be heard, these people, as Miju's servants, knew what to rot in their hearts. Eat vegetables and eat vegetables. Liu Bei smiled and used his halberd to cut the dishes on his plate, and then ate them with chopsticks. Xiao came 7 or 8 times and never appeared again. Liu Bei and Li Yu, Chen Shi chatted about their own affairs, and then compared with the present, they had to sigh at the impermanence of the world. Dang dang dang. When I was drinking to my heart's content, someone knocked on the door. Yo, there are other dishes. We can't finish these dishes. Although this soybean oil stir-fry is indeed good, but it can't be so extravagant. Liu Bei glanced at Chen Shi, and then Chen Shi glanced at Li Yu. In desperation, Li Yu had to open the door. No way, these 3 people were the closest to the door, and sure enough, the next time you eat, you have to remember to sit a little farther away from the door. Yo, Zhongkang. Chen Shi smiled and waved to Shu Chu, holding the wine glass, and asked with a smile, I'll just say, how can there be so many dishes? What about the little devil you brought with you? It won't slip out of your hands. How could I, Lao Shu, let him slip away? Saying that, Shu Chu touched behind him and dragged the kid out. How can this kid slip away? Ahem. Cough. 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 Chen Shi almost spat out a mouthful of wine, but after swallowing it, he was really choked. Ahem. Ahem. You're sure, this is that little devil? Are you mistaken? Chen Shi looked at the man wearing a plain robe. His face was like a crown of jade, his lips were red and his teeth were white. He was wearing a golden crown, and a jade pendant was hanging from his waist. Holding a wooden folding fan that is now basically popular in the Han Dynasty, the little beggar who was black before had a mistake in the way he opened it. Or should I say that this is a direct change in painting style? Are you that thief? Chen Shi asked in shock. Even if you go out with this look, even if you tell people that this guy is a thief, who believes it? Besides, are you mistaken? As a beggar you are so white, you are going to play a noble son in trouble. You are the thief. The little devil said angrily, and suddenly all his previous demeanor was gone. Oh, I believed it. The little kid was stunned. However, before he showed a proud look, Chen Shi gave a heavy blow. Although I changed a set of clothes, I look like a person, but in the end the pulp still didn't change, and I was still a thief. Okay, Zichuan, don't worry about the children. Come on, which family are you from? Sit here. Liu Bei still hasn't figured out what is going on with this child, and he dares to talk to Chen Shi like this. So arrogant and handsome enough, he exudes an aura that is almost at the level of qi refinement, and at first glance he looks like a young man from a noble family. That's a thief, and this outfit proves one thing, that is, people rely on clothes. Chen Shi said dissatisfiedly, if he hadn't known that this little guy was a thief, he would definitely have a good impression of the other party. He was handsome, and he could already beat 3 or 5 big men at a young age, which was a good embryo. Isn't it just to take a bag of gold beads from you, and I will pay you back when I have money in the future? The little kid muttered unhappily, and then sat down next to Liu Bei. Boy Mahjong has seen General Zhendong. Yes, yes. Liu Bei pinched Mahjong twice. Good body, good embryo, but unfortunately I haven't received good teaching. Chen Shi was a little dumbfounded on the side. This little kid is called Mahjong, at this point in time, so big, and a little martial arts. It is estimated that there is only the god general killer Mahjong, and then think about this guy's low background. It is not impossible to be unlucky and mix with a beggar. After all, this guy was a military Sima at his peak. But it is ironic enough to be recorded in the annals of history as Wu Sima. Mahjong sat on the seat and twisted around a little unaccustomedly, staring at the food on the table and swallowing his saliva. Liu Bei smiled, sandwiched a plate full of meat for the other party. There was nothing to look down on, and then handed the halberd to Mahjong to signal the other party to do it himself. Zichuan, tell me, what's going on with this child? Even a pack of gold beads won't let you pay so much attention to him. Liu Bei watched the other party chewing the meat on the plate, smiled and patted the other party's back, signaling the other party not to worry. But Mahjong chewed the meat slices in his mouth and turned his head to look at Liu Bei in confusion, not understanding Liu Bei's meaning at all. I just think it's more eyesore, and the street children rehabilitation plan is part of my plan. I plan to give them a chance, an opportunity to learn some crafts, knowledge, or martial arts, etc. And as a second time I bumped into my things, he is just a good test subject, and give me my wallet. Chen Shi looked at Mahjong who was chewing meat there unhappily and said, and then slowly told the whole plan. So that's the case, every teenager should be given a chance, and it should be, and these wandering little beggars should be given a chance. Liu Bei nodded in agreement with Chen Shi's statement, and said with some pity looking at the carriage that was still gobbling up. When the time comes, mobilize the entire people under the rule to find all those homeless children, provide them with 3 meals and lodging, and hand over the younger ones to a special person to lead, and then educate them when they are older. Chen Shi stared at Ma Zhong and said unhappily, of course, the first thing after going in is to let them break the habit of petty theft. Like this guy, you should get to the barracks for a period of time to practice. Zichuan, you seem to have a lot of resentment towards Ma Zhong. It's just a child, be tolerant. Liu Bei comforted him. For Ma Zhong, who was still trying to gnaw on pig's trotters until now, Liu Bei couldn't help but feel a little sorry. Such a good child was starved to such an extent. I don't know how many such people are under his rule. What about the Han Kingdom? Forget it. Don't worry about him. Chen Shi waved his hand and said, to be honest, I occasionally want to gather all the children for education, such as loyalty and righteousness education, such as military education, compared to the education of a big country. Anyway, for this group of children, whether it is a beggar or the children of officials, they are the hope of the future for me, so I have to take good care of them, and many of my ideals are in them. Chen Shi would not tell Liu Bei that he did this to shape the spirit he wanted to convey to the next generation. After all, his family held printing and papermaking, and he was responsible for surveying what he wanted to teach, and what he wanted to instill was a matter of one sentence. Chapter 247 Grading is essential. Chen Shi cannot guarantee that the textbook he chooses is the best, but he dares to guarantee that the textbook he chooses is definitely much better than the textbooks chosen by others in his time, and sometimes the wisdom accumulated by vision and time is enough to crush the vast majority of wise men. Well, I'll contribute a share. Liu Bei didn't think much about it, but habitually said that he should keep a share for him when he did things for the people, and besides, he was not very tight now, and Liu Bei, who had just rented out the land, still had a lot of spare money in his hands. No problem, it would be great if Xian Degong was willing to pay. Like this kind of basic welfare investment, there is no profit in itself, and it needs to be paid into it every year. Chen Shi gave Liu Bei a bottom in advance. Don't think that Chen Shi can make money in whatever he does. Like some things are not things that make money, pure love, pure welfare, but it is of great significance to the whole country. Chen Shi is implying that Liu Bei's money invested here needs to be invested infinitely, and there is no profit in sight. Liu Bei was stunned. He was giving Ma Zhong a beating to Mao's right hand, and after a long time, he turned his head to look at Ma Zhong and said, after all, I am a child of the Han family, and I, Liu Xuande, still have money and food, so invest it, give the people of the world a chance, and give me a chance. Xuande Gong rend. Chen Shi said calmly, there is no profit investment, just to improve the vision and quality of the people from generation to generation, in order to make their lives better. As for how much to invest, Chen Shi dares to guarantee that Liu Bei is ready for Chen Shi to spend an astronomical amount. Ha ha ha, when I didn't have money before, the breeze in my sleeves was also very refreshing. Even if I don't have a penny now, I still have the support of the people under me, and I am happier than before. Money comes and goes quickly. Instead of hoarding in my hands and thinking about how to spend it, it is better to leave it to Zichuan to seek a welfare for the people. Liu Beilang said with a smile. Liu Bei patted Ma Zhong's hand and slowed down, obviously feeling very sorry for throwing out a large pile of copper plates that were not yet warm, but it was still bold. It could be seen that in Chen Shi's case, the money was not counted, and sometimes it was transported out in piles. Under the ups and downs, Liu Bei has been bearish on money. Xuande Gong is wise. Li Yu and Chen Shi looked at each other, and they were very satisfied with Liu Bei's current attitude towards money and nothingness. What is wise? Liu Bei waved his hand. If I are wise, the children under my rule should be well fed and clothed, and I will start working on education for me later. That, Xuande Gong should come step by step. First rely on the people under the rule to gather the street children under the age of 15. Then apply for teaching certificates for scholars. Open library borrowing qualifications for scholars with teaching certificates, and then, at the same time, apply for household registration for students who go to school, provide free breakfast and lunch to non-street children, and then expand the coverage area of household registration, and include teaching qualifications, borrowing qualifications, and other qualifications into the household registration. Chen Shi roughly told Liu Bei that things were not so simple. Why is the household registration not done at once? Liu Bei asked puzzled. Because it can't be done. Too many people won't do it if they just apply for household registration. And to apply for teaching vouchers for scholars, only with this can they have borrowing vouchers. And after having these certificates, they will get used to this kind of thing, and then notify them that a third certificate will appear. Most of them will recognize it, and then there will be a 3-in-1 simplicity, as well as certain benefits given by the household registration certificate. They will do it. Chen Shi explained helplessly. It's always very troublesome to promote new things, but fortunately, there is a class of scholars that everyone wants to enter, and what this class wants, otherwise, it is really very difficult. Give students household registration, not to students' parents, because children are very receptive to new things, and parents can see these benefits with their own eyes, they will recognize them, and then we can make requests. For example, adults aged 18 to 40 can recognize and write 1,000 commonly used words to issue household registration. Enjoy the benefits of primary household registration, and you can also study. All in all, it is necessary to be meticulous enough. Chen-Shi said very proudly. He remembered that a certain country did this for a while before, and then he really got out of his blindness. After hearing this, Li Yu sprinkled all the wine in his hand. What is Chen-Shi going to do? Is this going against the sky? In this era where 90% of people are illiterate, it is really against the sky. Li Yu muttered to Chen-Shi and said, he was frightened, to say that he wanted to push the family off the altar before, but now Chen-Shi is simply trying to fulfill the dream of the sages. How many sages can only look up to the sky and tear their eyes throughout their lives? But it's a pity that we don't have so many scholars to teach, alas. Li Yu quickly discovered the biggest mistake in Chen-Shi's goal. Don't worry, it's just 1,000 words, it's very simple, I will create it without a teacher. The so-called learning is in no order, the master is the teacher, Gan Luo 12 worships, recognize the little devil of 1,000 words, and no one will say anything to teach the group of adult illiterates. Chen-Shi said nonchalantly, he even prepared the literacy textbook, whether there was 1,000-character text, this was what he learned when he was a child. In other words, if according to the previous brain, the 1,000-character text can be memorized in parts, but if you want to memorize the whole article, it will be until Chen-Shi is 7 or 8 years old. Li Yu was stunned for a moment, and silently recited, those who have learned in no order are teachers, and Gan Luo 12 bows to each other. Sichuan is blocking other people's rebuttals this time, which is very reasonable, and scholars should be reasonable. Sichuan is right, learning is in no order, the master is the teacher, and in the future, this sentence will be used as the idea of the academy, but I didn't expect Sichuan to be very accomplished in this regard. Liu Bei said with great appreciation. Chen-Shi was speechless, he was once again sure that even if the wisdom accumulated over thousands of years came out of his mouth inadvertently, it was enough to crush too many ancients. After all, there are too many words in the common words now that have been tempered for thousands of years, and they are all words that can only be said by people at the level of the founding sect. Turn over, it's not a thing, continue, I guess there is no problem with a household registration, literacy in this era can be said to be everyone's dream, as long as we are willing to give them the opportunity to read, even if they learn today and forget tomorrow, they will always work hard to learn, there is no resistance in this regard, so to classify, the household registration must show what this person is good at. Even a carpenter must mark what level this is. Chen-Shi has been made extremely unprincipled by the classification of later generations, and he wants to implement classification in the Han Dynasty as well. Chapter 248 This Damn Era. Chen-Shi's thinking is very amazing in the eyes of Li Yu, Liu Bei and others, so that when the time comes, it will be clear to see a person's household registration and take it out. How good. Forget it, let's not talk about this. When the time comes, Zijing will hand over the complete plan to Zhuangdegang. And now hurry up and let this guy eat, let him take us to the gathering place of the group of stray children, and capture them all. Chen-Shi waved his hand to indicate that the whole thing was still very troublesome, and it could not be explained in a while. That's right, Ma Zhong, can you take me to where you stay? Liu Bei asked warmly. Ma Zhong nodded, although he had been gobbling up, but the experience he had saved from wandering for many years made him still pay attention to the conversation of Chen-Shi and others, and finally he was sure that these people really didn't have any bad thoughts about him. And he also figured out what these people wanted to do, although he didn't understand why such a good thing was only started now. But he knew very well how important this matter was to them. Can I take these things with me? Ma Zhong looked at Liu Bei with a hopeful look on his face and asked. He finished all the soup on the table, and the rest was some cut meat, which was easy to take away. Liu Bei sighed and touched Ma Zhong's head. Don't worry, you will eat it in the future, exercise well, and you will become a fierce general. I want to take it back to give my younger brothers and sisters. Ma Zhong said in a low voice, as the eldest of the group, he was agile enough to steal some money from time to feed those little beggars who were younger than him. After all, a big fat sheep like Chen-Shi who was completely unvigilant. Ma Zhong had only seen it once, but unfortunately he stole a pack of gold beads and couldn't use it at all. Liu Bei looked at the meat left on the table. I knew that Ma Zhong had such a mind at the beginning of the junior high school, and touched Ma Zhong's head. I don't know how many orphans are wandering around like you, and a little second will come up to pack and take it away for you later. It's very hard, all these years. Ma Zhong just snorted lightly and stopped speaking. As for how hard it is to wander, Chen Shi has a general understanding of the era of the so-called legal system in the 21st century. The wanderers filmed were extremely miserable, not to mention the troubled times of 1,800 years, which could be said to be terrible, and I guess that if it weren't for Mahjong, he would still have this strength. He and his younger siblings who followed him were probably sold. Even worse, a little bit was eaten. Mahjong carried the meat wrapped in dried lotus leaves, and ran to the place where he used to stay. Keep up. Liu Bei did not stop Mahjong's actions, and he was very moved by the boy's behavior. All the way through more than a dozen alleys, the road became narrower and narrower, and Chen Shi who looked at it gave birth to an idea that this generation needed to be demolished and rebuilt. When I turned around, I demolished and rebuilt this generation. Sichuan, is there still a place like this in Fengyao? Liu Bei looked at Chen Shi with some anger and asked. Looking at the streets with sewage, there were also skinny refugees who couldn't tell the age and couldn't tell the difference between men and women. No way, Fengyao is developing too fast, and I am not omnipotent, I can only control it roughly, and besides, don't I already plan to expose these to the sun and prepare to rectify them? Although Chen Shi was also shocked by the scene in front of him, his face was still indifferent, and his tone did not fluctuate much. Chen Shi stared at this group of people, sighing in his heart. This group of people in addition to him did not notice, more of their own reasons. Chen Shi remembered very clearly, his work for relief has not stopped, and the semi-drug nature of free therapy has not stopped. Just this alley, just Mahjong's move, must have mixed in the place of work in lieu of relief, and also tried medicine in the free therapy. This group of people have mixed to this point. What can Chen Shi say? You are out of this alley. Liu Bei looked at Chen Shi's indifferent expression and couldn't say anything. He also reacted. Chen Shi's work for relief did not stop at all, and the free drug trial treatment carried out by dozens of warehouses of medicinal materials did not stop. How many people went to the place where they worked for relief to help with the meal by the way, and went to see if there was a little problem, although the medical skills were average. But it was better than not having money. I can't help it, I'm willing to save people, they don't want to be rescued, what can I do? Chen Shi said helplessly, I'll let them know what forced labor is to give them food. Liu Bei looked at Chen Shi's expression and knew that Chen Shi would definitely do this kind of thing. Alas, after all, it is my rule, and it is also my fault to let them live like this. It's all Xuandegang's fault, so Xuandegang continues to work hard. Don't worry, there is nothing wrong with solving these people. Chen Shi did not hesitate to throw the black pot at Liu Bei, saying that he could solve the matter himself. Alas, Liu Bei sighed, and then passed by the group of refugees squatting and sitting on the road with sewage. Looking at the cloudy eyes of this group of people, as well as the fear of a few of his own people, since Fengyao Jianqi, Liu Bei has never seen others look at him like this, and the eyes of the people who know him have always been grateful, gentle, and admiring, never before. Give me death. Mahjong's angry voice came from the yard. It's really a coincidence, Zhongkang, it's up to you. I don't know how long the other party has been staring, human trafficking. He. Chen Shi almost understood what was going on when he heard that sound. Mahjong said that there were men and women, and Chen Shi knew that it was easy for little girls to be arrested and sold as beggars, and this era was really perverted. When Xu Chu came in, Mahjong had already fought with a few men on the opposite side, and his group of younger brothers and sisters were hiding behind a pillar more than 10 meters away, not shouting, just hiding there quietly, probably because they had experienced a lot. The tiger fool made a move, did not give the other party a chance to speak at all. One person punched all vomited blood and fell to the ground. This time Mahjong knew that he and Xu Chu had a huge gap. If Chen Shi hadn't let people hurt Mahjong before, those soldiers would have been good enough to make Mahjong look good. Yo, it looks like it's not very safe here. Chen Shi casually kicked the man who was seriously injured by Xu Chu at his feet. Tell me, what are these people arresting you for? They are Manxianglu's subordinates. Mahjong kicked a man in the neck in resentment and directly broke the other party's neck. Chen Shi was stunned for a moment, and then looked at Mahjong with interest. He didn't expect Mahjong to have this kind of mind. Killing people will pull all these people into the water. This matter will naturally be given by Liu Bei and others. After Mahjong kicked a man to death, he saw that everyone looked indifferent and began to tell the whole thing. Normal, who let you a little ghost take a dozen little girls, 7 or 8 little boys. The traffickers don't look at you and who you are. If you don't have good strength, and you are cautious, you will be sold yourself. Chen Shi said indifferently that he could make Mahjong angry. They all came several times, and last time my younger siblings were taken away, and then that time I killed several of them and snatched my sister back, and then I was much more careful, and they didn't dare to come. Mahjong stared at Chen Shi indignantly, and then began to calmly say that he had killed someone. Chen Shi's eyes showed a hint of unbearability, and then he passed away in a flash. A 12 or 13-year-old boy had already killed several adults who had bullied him. This damn era. Chapter 249 Sensible is heartbreaking. Chen Shi squatted down and reached out to grab the leading guy. Are you from Mythical? Why haven't I seen it? You'd better let us go. Otherwise our owner will definitely not let you go. The leader vomited blood and said with difficulty, but he didn't say anything cruel. Shu Chu's strength was too awe-inspiring to him. Just a punch, all the powerful men he brought this time were seriously injured and fell to the ground. Who is your owner? Not to mention in Mount Tai, even in the Han Dynasty, there are not many who dare to offend us. Tell me, who is your owner? So crazy, I like madmen very much. Chen Shi's face rippled with a demonic smile, before Ma Zhong said that this group of people was full of fragrance building. Liu Bei began to stare at Chen Shi. In his memory, this is the store opened by Chen Shi. How can he do such a thing? My owner is Liu Xuanda's military division, Marquis Chen Zichuan. The leading man glared at Chen Shi and angrily reprimanded. Ma Zhong instantly became wary after hearing this sentence. He knew that the person like the young master squatting on the ground opposite was Chen Shi, so how could the words he said in the restaurant before be true? I am afraid that it is just to make private transactions legal. In vain he still believes in these officials, afraid that this time it is already a sheep in the tiger's mouth. Ma Zhong's eyes flashed a trace of panic, and then silently looked around his younger siblings, signaling them to leave quickly. Kid, sometimes you'd better investigate, saying that I don't remember that I have asked people to do human trafficking. By the way, Manxianglu is no longer in the skin business. Why do you catch little girls? Chen Shi saw Ma Zhong's actions and rolled his eyes. Then he took out the seal of his title and shook it in front of the leading man. I am the owner you mentioned. Now explain to me when I asked you to do this. Chen who spares his life. Chen who spares his life. At the moment when he saw Chen Shi's seal, the leading man finally knew that he had hit the iron plate, and begged for mercy loudly. Stop, I want to know what is going on with you and Manxianglu. Don't worry, if what you say is true, I will not blame you in the past. Chen Shi is really hard to say about human trafficking at this time. After all, many people in this era voluntarily exchanged their mouths for slaves. Of course, this kind of trading without capital is a bit excessive, but it is just excessive. The leader looked at Chen Shi very clearly, if he didn't tell the truth. The death was absolutely miserable, and in desperation, the bamboo tube poured beans and said what it should say. I'm really unlucky. I just said that Manxianglu has changed jobs. How can it be accepted? Go to a few people and hand them over to Man Chong. Let him sentence him moderately. Don't kill him. Chen Shi said speechlessly. He just said, knowing that Manxianglu is supported by him behind him. Why is it that even this kind of scum is clear now? Things have been clarified. In the past, Feng Gao was not rich, and there were many people who sold their children and daughters, while Manxianglu did the skin and meat business. Naturally, there is a connection, and now the entire rule has become rich. Not to mention anything else, there is no problem for the people to support their children, so if anyone sells their babies, this group of people has no stable supply of goods and can only catch people everywhere. Chen Shi said helplessly. The reason why they want to bear the title of Manxianglu is not because Manxianglu is big enough and domineering enough. Even if those officials of Taishan in Qingju see that there is such a team catching beggars, they turn a blind eye to it, and they hear that this is a person from Manxianglu, let alone care. Most of them acquiesce, and there are people above it who are easy to do, but this time they hit a real person. I just said that Zichuan will not drop the price like this. There are too many ways to make money. Why do you need to do this kind of business? Liu Bei nodded and gave Li Yu a hint that for this kind of guy who corrupted the reputation of officials, Liu Bei would not be as in-depth as Chen Shi. In his opinion, it was the most appropriate to describe his guilt and behead the public. Li Yu smiled and said that he knew, killing one or two traffickers to deter everyone. Li Yu felt that there was no pressure, thinking that when he deterred the officials of the Yang family in Guanxi, it was called a head-rolling. If there was no such iron-blooded means, the combat effectiveness of the Yang family, maybe Dongzhuo would be unlucky. Alas, things are going to get worse again. It's really troublesome. Chen Shi said with an unhappy face. Now he must give some grey businesses a card, otherwise he doesn't know how many people will mess around in his name. He is not a top tank. Hey, Ma Zhong, to tell you the truth, I can't do such a shameful thing. If you believe me, take your younger siblings with us, and if you don't believe me, stay here. After gambling, live in the sun, or give up this time and wait for the impossible second time. Chen Shi was too lazy to persuade Ma Zhong. The other party's eyes were full of doubts. There was no way that the previous officials would ruin their reputation. It was really outrageous. Even Chen Shi had no good way. He could only re-establish step by step. Go or stay here, you choose. Chen Shi glanced at all the children. It was obvious that these people were staring at Ma Zhong, and Ma Zhong's eyes were hesitant. Chen Shi couldn't say anything about this kind of thing. After all, after so many years of wandering, if he didn't have a little vigilance, he would probably have been sold long ago. Liu Bei also looked at Ma Zhong, watching him scan both sides of the door and his younger siblings. And finally his eyes fell on Liu Bei. Xuandagong, can I trust you? Won't you really sell us to others? Chen Shi covered his eyes with helplessness. What does this kid think? How much can you sell for it? You are Mahjong, the killer Mahjong. This title can show your worth. I once swore that I would rule over food and clothing, and you are among them, and I will protect you until you are 16. Liu Bei said very solemnly. Even if it is this smallest goal, Liu Bei feels that he has to put in enough effort to achieve it. Since he saw it, then give them hope. I believe it. Mahjong hesitated for a long time and then spoke. Liu Bei walked over and touched Mahjong's head. Let's go, leave here with your younger siblings. I'll arrange it for you first, and when Zichuan gets the rest of the things done, you can go to school. Chen Shi shook his head slightly. Looking at this group of children, he still admired Mahjong. This kid was actually very loyal. If it weren't for the drag of this group of little kids, probably Mahjong would be able to mix anywhere. You guys come over and eat something. General Zhendong will take us out of here in a while. Mahjong picked up the wallet he had lost before, opened the package and said to their younger siblings. A group of thin little ghosts ran to Mahjong's side and his brother kept screaming, and soon ate a large bag of meat. Looking at the unfinished look, he knew how these children lived before, but after eating, none of the children said to Mahjong that they still wanted to eat this kind of thing. Even if these children were a little ignorant, they knew that they should not cause trouble to their brothers. This damn era, shouldn't these children be coquettish in their parents' arms? Why is it heartbreaking to be sensible? Chapter 250 The Three Ideals of F.A. Zhang. Liu Bei usually has nothing to do, but once interest comes up, he will look for trouble on the same day, such as today. After placing Mahjong and his party in Zhong's place, he began to summon civil and military officials to prepare to discuss political affairs. Zichuan, what do you think Zhuangdegang urgently summoned us people for? Lu Su followed Chen Shi with a semi-finished plan in his hand. Today Zhuangdegang saw some bad things, and then planned to find something for us to do. Chen Shi said casually. I think it's mainly your problem. Liu Yi said extremely unhappily on the side. The Lord's current hometown was built by you. Do you think you can live in it with the Lord's state of mind? Yes, Zichuan, what you did this time is indeed a bit too much. You didn't see it, the room is colorful, it is simply the flower of a black bird. Mizhu also poked his head aside and said. In other words, Mizhu doesn't need to run business recently. A business regulation has been ripped off until now, mainly because Chen Shi did not ask for speed. Now a bunch of people are fighting. Mizhu and Zhong have formed an alliance and a group of people are happy to fight. And when they are talking about Fenggao, the business circle that radiates Qingju is becoming more and more prosperous, and it is becoming more and more worth talking about. The black bird is also a phoenix. The phoenix has 5 virtues. Okay, the house will be called the 5 virtues in the future. Chen Shi got involved without any scrupulousness. Anyway, no one in this group would propose to push it to rebuild. Military strategist. Zhao Yun shouted, and then everyone turned their heads to stare at Zhao Yun. These people present can be used as military advisors, although it is generally Chen Shi who does not have a name. But now in this situation, everyone is very bored, and it is normal to tease Zhao Yun. Ahem, the house you built is too luxurious, contrary to the simplicity of the Han dynasty. Zhao Yun tugged at the corners of his mouth, but still said it. You have to ask Gongyu. I only provided construction materials. How to build it is a matter of public blessings, and it has nothing to do with me. Chen Shi casually pulled out the shield and casually asked Sun Qian to lie down with his gun. Sun Qian looked at Chen Shi speechlessly. I can't build these buildings without those materials. You must know that I can't accept it after building it myself, not to mention Zhuangdegang. What I'm most afraid of now is that the people under me can't accept it. Everyone was silent, and as a result, Fa Jing jumped out from the side. If I have money, I will also build a building, which can be listed as my 3 major life ideals. Xiaoji, your ideals are really average. As a teenager, you have to have lofty ideals. Tell me what ideals you have. Chen Shi glanced at Fa Zheng contemptuously. This ideal is really average. HMPH. The first ideal. Fa Zheng raised his head proudly, and everyone stopped to listen to this ideal, but after puffing up twice, Fa Zheng was deflated, and looked left and right before whispering. If I have the opportunity, I must punish Guo Fengxiao, and he often punishes me. The audience was silent, and after a long time, Jioshu stretched out a thumbs up. Xiaoji, you continue to work hard, I think you still have hope in your lifetime. That's right, that's it. Xiaoji. I'm optimistic about you. All of them perfunctory. Guo Fengxiao's evil daw was deeply felt. To say that Fa Zheng and Guo Jiao grew to a height, these people felt that it was not a big problem, but if Fa Zheng wanted to punish Guo Jiao, it would be unrealistic. I don't know why Guo Jiao dodges 90% of the trouble based on intuition alone. Fa Zheng looked at the group of scum in front of him dissatisfiedly. Recently he also began to officially contact government affairs. Chen Shi also counted him in the head, and lost some government affairs to deal with, but this group of scum actually perfunctory him. I really thought he couldn't see it. His talent for filial piety was to analyze people. Okay, don't joke, Xiaoji continued. What is the second dream? Chen Shi restrained his smile and asked curiously. Cook mutton in a bronze cauldron like a lord and eat. Fa Zhang said with a hopeful face. Alas, Chen Shi patted Fa Zhang on the shoulder and left directly. It's hopeless. Lu Su said helplessly. What a good child. Liu Yi shook his head and walked past Fa Zhang. Hey. What are you doing? Fa Zhang said unhappily. What a grand ideal this is. Xiaoji, except for the first ideal that can be counted as an ideal, the last two, you have disappointed me too much. Jioshu patted Fa Zhang on the shoulder, as if you were crooked because I didn't straighten you. Hey. Fa Zhang was directly dumbfounded. What is this? When did I get involved with you, Jiao Wenhe? We are superiors and subordinates. It's my business that I'm biased, and besides, where did I get biased? I'll go see my law. Man Chong glanced at Fa Zhang with a cold face, patted him on the shoulder twice and walked over. Xiaoji, keep working hard. Jian Yong also had a heavy look. Hey, the young and the strong don't work hard, and the old man is sad. Sun Qian also followed the rhythm. Alas, Mizhu shook his head and walked over from the front of the law. This group of people were all ruined by Chen Shi's out-of-the-box thinking. After all, they were all young people, and there were not many taboos, and the whole person was also a set. Wei Xiao, you won't have to say it too. Fa Zheng's mind is still confused. No matter what the situation, he always has a crooked expression. Alas, my life is to follow in their footsteps, filial piety and mourning. Liu Yang directly gave Fa Zheng a heavy blow. Festival. Mourning? Fa Zheng was directly frightened. Why did he suddenly jump to Jie mourning? Wenhe, Xiang, Zijing, did you find out? Wei Xiao is the most ruthless. Last time I was, this time Xiaoji was also confused. Sure enough, celebrities are ruthless. Chen Shi said in a low voice. It makes sense. Let Wei Xiao take the last step in some things in the future. It's simply a heavy blow. Xiaoji, who was still proud just now, seems to have been stunned by a blow. Liu Yi touched his beard and peeked twice and said, By the way, is it time to give Xiaoji a seat? He can also use it. He has been pressed by Feng Xiao in his seat before. Look, Xiaoji is going to sit in the seat of Feng Xiao before. This guy has really been tossed out of the shadow by Feng Xiao, and he has forgotten that he should have a seat. Lu Su said in a low voice. It's terrible. I've completely forgotten that I should also *** out and have a seat, not sit with me. Jioshu said it was strange. Xiaoji, you are already qualified to sit in the seat, so you don't have to sit in the position of Feng Xiao. Li Yu glanced at Chen Shi's circle of people who were muttering there, and knew that this group of guys deliberately didn't tell Fa Zhang, so he told Fa Zhang about this surprise with a smile on his face. In an instant, Fa Zhang jumped up. He was actually qualified to *** attend. Only *** attendance can be regarded as the chief official. Even if he squatted in the last seat, it was much better than squatting in Guozhou's deputy seat. After all, no matter how well the adjutant did it, it was also the merit of the chief officer, and once he became the chief officer, his great achievements would be considered beckoning to him. Where do I sit? Where do I sit? Fa Zhang asked excitedly. Next to me. Li Yu didn't speak. Jioshu and Manchong pointed to the position next to them and said. Fa Zhang was happy, didn't look at anything else at all, sat down directly. Li Yu and Chen Shi looked at each other, only to see Chen Shi nodded, and stopped talking. Jiao Wenhe and Manchong actually gave a vacant seat between the two of them early in the morning, and Fa Zhang was too excited and sat in front of Manchong without thinking too much. This seat may not change again in a short time. Chapter 251 Zhong Fei, you are selling your teammates. Chen Shi glanced at Fa Zhang sitting next to Jioshu and didn't say anything. In terms of ability, he was indeed qualified to sit in that position. At most his thinking was a little jumpy, just honed and tempered. Since Jioshu and Manchong didn't mind Fa Zhang sitting there, Chen Shi didn't see it, but what kind of status he enjoyed, he needed to bear what kind of responsibility. The opposite side of the military general can now be said to be noisy. After all, this is the first time Liu Bei has officially summoned everyone, and the position he is sitting in is very indicative of his status. The first place is empty, there is nothing to say. Guaneri boss, Zhong Fei sits in the second position and no one is convinced. Zhao Yun sits in the third position, has nothing to say. Hua Xiong sits behind Zhao Yun. Sun Guan immediately follows. The military general is empty in the first place. Gan Ning, Tai Shizi, Yu Jin, Zhong Ba, and those who have not come back don't care. Otherwise, Gan Ning's explosive record is enough to squeeze Hua Xiong out. When Liu Bei came, everyone found a seat, and Liu Bei took a look and stopped paying attention to these things. Everyone, I invite you to come today to discuss important matters, and Sichuan also has some resolutions ready to be implemented. Liu Bei did not have the habit of talking nonsense at the beginning, so he said bluntly. After saying everything he said and saw today, all the generals looked at Liu Bei with a fanatical face, and it was too touching to help the world. Well, that's such a goal. We want to shine glory on the earth, and we first seek food and clothing under our rule. To further enrich the people and strengthen the country, my goal is to teach the young and support the elderly. Chen Shi coughed, swept away the embarrassment of being fired by the civil officials before, and said majestically and righteously. That's what Sichuan said. If you want to say that Chen Shi is pretending, then Liu Bei is now like a sage possessed, fooled and lame, and has entered the state. His goal is to do this. Sichuan, explain your plan in full. Chen Shi had no choice but to get up again and began to explain popular education, household registration, and of course, donations are indispensable. Basically, that's it. According to this order, many academies should officially start enrolling students this month. By the beginning of spring next year, it will basically be popularized to most places in Taishan, Qingju, of course, given that some places are too remote to guarantee. For some scholars who are willing to go to remote areas, the welfare level will be increased by 1. And double the salary. Zijing, what other benefits? Chen Shi is really not very good at details. There is no problem with the general direction, but he belongs to the incompetent in the details. Zijing, can my Taishan treasury still support it? Liu Bei asked. As long as the current stable situation can be maintained, according to Sichuan's estimate, it will usher in the first explosive prosperity in 3 years, and the tax will rise further, and it will not be too difficult to support the education of teenagers. Lu Su said that as long as it is in a stable state, Mount Tai can be supported. Then if we enter a state of war? Liu Bei frowned and said. Chen Shi glanced at Lu Su and stood up. Even if we enter a state of war, this expenditure cannot be cut off. This is related to our future. As soon as these words came out, the generals began to whisper and be uneasy, and it was obvious that Chen Shi's approach had a faint intention of suppressing the generals. There is still money, you can rest assured, there will be no vacancies in the treasury if I am still here. Seeing the generals whispering, Chen Shi glanced around and said indifferently, this time no one refuted. Chen Shi will not tell others that his idea is that there must be a road before the car reaches the mountain. Anyway, universal education must be done. As for the war, there will be other ways when the time comes, and it will be said after passing this level first. With Chen Shi's guarantee, the generals have nothing to say. Chen Shi is very good at making money. Everyone recognizes that since there is no problem of reducing the number of troops, the generals are happy to help Chen Shi support it. Under this harmonious atmosphere, household registration and education were passed without waves. At most, these people needed to pay some money to buy a place as an academy, or some local tyrants were willing to donate money. The next thing is to improve the welfare of soldiers, in view of the fact that some soldiers, whether they are 13 or 14 years old, or in their 40s, have been included in the army to expand their strength. I intend to forcibly eliminate those soldiers who do not meet the standards. Chen Shi glanced at the opposite general with a cold face. In an instant, all the generals entered the state, including Zhao Yun, who was a civil official all day long, and also paid great attention to his military power. First of all those under the age of 18 are expelled. Is that kind of guy combat effective? Chen Shi stared at the opposite side. I was expelled from the team at the age of 32. I was expelled from the Centurion at the age of 35, and the low-level general at the age of 40 was transferred to logistics. Sichuan, this is not possible. There are not a few 30-year-old soldiers in our army, and many of them are veterans who follow us. How will they deal with it once the disarmament is gone? All the generals stared at Zhao Yun. No way. This group of people was more neatly in Zhao Yun's mouth, and the historical record was drawn with Chen Shi. Zijing, read the welfare. Chen Shi turned his head to give Lu Su a look. Lu Su got up and picked up the plan, smiled and began to read aloud. Compared with the semi-finished product of the previous education, this soldier's welfare was well studied by him, and in the case of spending not much money in food, he gave enough glory and benefits to the retired soldiers, which Lu Su was very proud of. After hearing this, Zhao Yun was stunned. This benefit is not generally good, and each of them can be said to be towards the goal of relieving the worries of the soldiers. Big brother, now disarmament will lead to our army having no soldiers available. Zhong Fei was not stupid, and after hearing this, he knew that it was useless to use veterans to make a living in the future, and Chen Shi was useless at all, and he had already been prepared, so he turned his head directly and asked Liu Bei. General Zhong, don't be impatient. Chen Shi smiled and said, I just discharged some non-standard soldiers, and I didn't say that you are not allowed to recruit soldiers, and you can recruit units that meet the standards in the Tuncheon troops. But this cannot guarantee combat effectiveness. Zhao Yun obviously wanted to compromise, and the pile of people on the opposite side were obviously prepared, and it was inevitable that they couldn't stand it. It's a pity that all the generals looked at Zhao Yun, and in desperation, Zhao Yun had to stand up and continue to fight. But well, Zhao Yun was not stupid, he knew when to play a slippery head, and handed Chen Shi a step. Yes. Once these people are laid off, the combat effectiveness of our army will be greatly reduced, and the newly incorporated troops will be far inferior to the veterans. Zhong Fei echoed, I think it's better for us to discharge the army batch by batch. Zhong Fei held on to hold this matter first, batch by batch by batch. In the end, it will definitely not be able to continue. When Guan Yu comes back, the generals will take the lead, then there will be no problem. At this moment, Zhao Yun wanted to give Zhong Fei a hug. He was simply the best sixth person. If he hadn't known that Zhong Fei would definitely not collude with Chen Shi, Zhao Yun would have wanted to say that Zhong Fei had been bought by the civil servant on the opposite side. Chapter 252 Retirement, Expansion, and Reorganization of the Army. Zhao Yun gave the steps. Zhong Fei sent the head. It's October. This is October of the lunar calendar, although it is followed by 2 November, but it is almost winter. Chapters are updated the fastest. So General Zhong agreed to be discharged. As long as the time is right, it will not affect the combat effectiveness, and it will not cause other princes to voyeurism, right? Chen Shi explained Zhong Fei's sentence batch by batch for a discharge analysis, and asked. Zhong Fei was stunned for a moment, thought for a while, it seemed to mean such a thing, so he nodded so stupidly, well, that's what I mean. Zilong, what's wrong with you? Zhong Fei looked at Zhao Yun and sat down directly as soon as he covered his forehead, and immediately looked at Zhao Yun with a puzzled face. General Zhong, you really have your... Zhao Yun made a bitter smile and slammed the big black pot on Zhong Fei's head. You carried this black pot the best. What's wrong? What's wrong? Zhong Fei still looked at Zhao Yun puzzled. Military division, please retain the basic defense force at that time. Even if you are resting in winter, please leave enough defense forces just in case. Zhao Yun's words are clearly admitting defeat. We don't fight. You are powerful. Come on, just leave a breath for the brothers. Zhong Fei was stunned, and was reacted by Zhao Yun as soon as he mentioned it. It was almost winter, and there would basically be no war in winter, so they all summarized this year's situation on their respective territories, and then nested in winter. Zhong Fei thought about what he said before. Staying at this time is directly selling teammates. When it comes to disarmament, who would think of what time it is today? This is not a matter of human actions. Hey, Zichuan. I just said it wrong. Don't take it seriously. Zhong Fei started to play tricks without saying a word, and he didn't ask the military strategist to change his words and play the favor card. The Third Brothers Legion has only 4,000 people, and it is estimated that half of them do not meet the requirements. You lay off, and the Third Brother will have no soldiers in the future, and the Third Brother's elite infantry and cavalry corps can generally fight 10 of them each, which is too wasteful. Why don't we cut the soldiers? All the civil servants covered their faces. Zhong Fei was too ashamed, and the disarmament was cut to the Tuncheon soldiers. It's really a shame that you can say such things as thick-skinned. Zichuan, you have pity on your Third Brother. Your Third Brother's soldiers are all veterans who have followed your Third Brother for several years, and some of them are still Zhuojuan Township braves. All 5 or 6 years. At that time, all the men recruited were 25 or 16 years old, and now they were all gone. How can you ask me to explain to my fellow villagers? Zhong Fei began to play with Lai Pi. Anyway, he was thick-skinned, and there was a group of generals behind him. Chen Shi's eyelids jumped wildly. Zhong Fei clearly played a trick, and the township brave recruited in the spring of 188 was only 5 years, not to mention that most of them died in the Yellow Turban Rebellion. Even if they are all alive, they are only in their 20s. What's more, it is not good to say that it is a problem that the 800 township warriors in Zhuojuan can survive 300 now. Besides, all gone, what to explain to the fellow villagers? Lu Su's welfare for these soldiers who have returned to age can't be better. Even if they don't join the urban management and patrol department, it's enough to go back to their hometown to recuperate. The Third Brother also has to be considerate of my difficulties. When there is no expiration when we enter the barracks, we must also be considerate of those soldiers. Give them a hope, they may survive more. Zhong Fei is unruly, so Chen Shi also plays the emotional card. They are all acquaintances. Who is afraid of whom? As soon as Zhong Fei was about to speak, Chen Shi intercepted him. Besides, I didn't limit your troops, but I will retreat those who don't meet the requirements. You can recruit soldiers for training. You have retired 300 old soldiers, and you feel that your combat effectiveness has been lost 303, you recruit 303. As for how the equipment of the 30 people came from, it is none of my business. Chen Shi said to Zhong Fei with a smile. Liu Bei was stunned for a moment, and then remembered why Chen Shi was 4000-5000 when he organized the army, but he gave 4,000 people food. Zhong Fei was stunned, turned his head to look at Liu Bei. This kind of thing needs Liu Bei's approval. There are 10% more troops out of thin air. Playing like this, if you make a big change of blood, in and out of the regular song, a corps is enough to have 500 more regular songs. As for the rations, equipment, and buckles, how did they all come out? Mainly because of the establishment. With this establishment, the army can be expanded, regardless of how the equipment comes from, whether it is captured or paid for. In short, as long as you give the establishment, you can pull up the troops. This is a troubled time, to put it bluntly. From top to bottom are all overstaffed legions. Zhong Fei cried and made a fuss about only 4,000 people. But once the army is counted, it is not strange if there are no 4,000 or 5. These things from Liu Bei to Lu Su, who is in charge of financial inflows and outs, and then to Liu Yi, who is in charge of statistics, are all turned a blind eye, as long as you are not too serious. No one will say anything. In addition, Liu Bei also remembered that the bottom line of the legion given by Chen Shi was 6,000 people, and the standard was 5,000 people. But when Chen Shi issued it, it became a legion of 4,000 people, which also reminded Liu Bei that as long as the legion does not exceed 5,000 people, you can turn a blind eye, and you need to beat if you march towards 6,000 people. Sichuan felt that the old and weak soldiers did not meet the requirements, and the legion composed of 8 Chu was a little weak, so he was ready to supplement the strength of a Chu, on the condition that each legion must eliminate those soldiers who did not meet the requirements. Liu Bei thought about it and expanded Chen Shi's stingy 10% of the troops and supplemented the infantry with a curve, and suddenly all the generals were overjoyed. The most intuitive manifestation of a military general in this era is how many soldiers you can bring, and the other glory for a military general is almost how many wars I have won, and what kind of impact these wars have. With Liu Bei's words, Zhong Fei was relieved, patting his chest and guaranteeing that he would kick all those guys when he went back, and then make up for the troops, train the soldiers for the winter well, and the next year they would be the elite of the First Legion, and the previous desolate look was completely gone. Similarly, all the generals said that they would definitely clear out all those pawns who did not meet the regulations when the time came, and the situation of civil officials and military generals was actually completely cheap and good. In other words, if you really want to cut the military power, this group of people will definitely remember Chen Shi, and they will definitely not forget it if they have the opportunity to find trouble with Chen Shi. As for the current situation, it is obvious that everyone is happy. Of course, this is because the generals did not know that Chen Shi's original design of the Legion was 6,000 full staff, and later deliberately reduced the 3 achievements in order to use it as a bait to hang the generals in the future. After all, as long as it is a military general, as long as it is said to expand military power, as long as it is not a matter of principle, these people will definitely accept it. But this time it seems that there is a lot of expansion, and it is necessary to ventilate Liu Bei in the future. What a prodigal! Chen Shi glanced at Liu Bei helplessly. The whole person really didn't know what to say. Chapter 253. Let's start work, everyone. Liu Bei was very puzzled by Chen Shi's eyes. In his opinion, everything was going well. Why did Chen Shi's eyes suddenly appear with obvious resentment? Fortunately, Chen Shi also knew that this was not a place to talk, and the legion formation was actually made by Chen Shi. That is, Liu Bei knew that no one else had told him, so he couldn't say anything, so he could only explain to Liu Bei in private, which was unlucky. Since you have all agreed to the discharge system, please delegate the veterans to Fonggao before the Jingling Hall sacrifice at the end of November this first month. Chen Shi's resentment was fleeting, and people stood in front of everyone again, facing Liu Bei. Naturally no one saw Chen Shi's expression. Hey! The generals stood up and replied, this is also a good thing for them, although they lost a little elite veterans in the short term, but in the long run, it can be regarded as expanding their strength. Bennying, the veterans who have retired will be handed over to you for reorganization, and at the same time, the city management and patrol departments will also be selected and established by you. Liu Bei said to Man Chong. Chen Shi passed him through these things, otherwise, but Liu Bei himself would definitely have too many omissions. Hey! Man Chong stood up and said, Gongyu, the road administration in the Taishan area of Qingju is left to you to solve, and the road must be built to Fonggao before the marriage date of Sichuan in mid-November, and the patrol troops in the city, mainly veterans, also need to enter the state before that. Liu Bei said seriously. Hey! Sun Qian stood up and bowed respectfully. Zijing, from now on, recruit scholars to lay out the education system. Be sure to build the academies in the main counties for me before Sichuan's wedding date, and as for the teaching materials, Sichuan has already prepared. There is also the demolition of unreasonable places in Fonggao. After Sun Qian answered, Liu Bei turned his gaze to Lu Su. It will definitely live up to expectations. Lu Su said calmly. Wenru, the household registration will be left to you with full authority, and the same craftsmanship grading and household registration grading will be left to you to solve. Do not ask to complete it before Sichuan's wedding date. At least at that time you must be able to come up with a charter. Liu Bei turned around and ordered Li Yu. Chen Shi shook his head slightly. Liu Bei still didn't know much about these people under his command. It can be said that these people already had a plan before Liu Bei gave the order. Just wait for an order to be executed directly. Don't worry, Duke Xuande. I will come up with a charter before Sichuan's wedding date. Li Yu seemed to have a look of that he was going to do his best, but in fact he despised everything he knew. More than a month, nearly 2 months ago, Li Yu started doing this, not to mention the charter now. If it weren't for Li Yu's seamless play, it would have been done now. When he, staring at the war in all directions. Don't let any princes take advantage of our army. Liu Bei stared at Joshu and said, Feng Xiao is not here, you have to remember to be a little more. Hey! Joshu got up and bowed. This time it was a real fall of the intelligence organization into Joshu's hands, without Guojiaru or suppression, and without Fa Zheng's laughter and play. This time the entire intelligence organization of Mount Tai was under Joshu's command. Zizhong, before Sichuan's wedding, the rules of the Chamber of Commerce must be handed over to me in the form of a contract. Otherwise, I don't mind asking Sichuan to write a copy for you on the same day. Liu Bei turned his head to look at Mi Zhu and said, Remember your identity. You have the right to bind any businessman doing business in Fenggao. It will not live up to the expectations of the Lord.
Mi Zhu replied respectfully.
Xiang, all the government templates are handed over to you to handle, and the officials of Qingju Taishan will be reviewed at the end of the year, and the results will be handed over to me at that time. Zilong will be transferred to Xiang for the time being to assist him in the official review. As for agriculture, Zilong has no problem. Liu Bei originally planned to hand over the full authority of the official assessment to Liu Yi, but when he thought of what Chen Shi said, he realized that the power to punish and reward should be in his own hands. Hey! Zhao Yun and Liu Yi said in unison. It is said that in the past 2 years, Zhao Yun has not been on the battlefield too many times, but he has done a lot of things such as dealing with agriculture and exploring people's conditions, saying that this year Zhao Yun's family has more than a dozen baskets of mountain delicacies and dried fruits, as well as some seasonal fruits and vegetables. This person is looking forward to it. Ida, Zijian, the two of you temporarily select soldiers on behalf of Zilong and train in winter. There must be no mistakes. Liu Bei looked at the military generals at the next level, and thought about Zhao Yun's multiple hats. Just exploring the people's conditions in the 4 fields and verifying the officials under his control was troublesome enough. If he still had to govern the army, recruit soldiers, and train, it would be really a problem if he didn't have a clone technique. Hey! Hua Xiong and Zhong Fei looked at each other, and at the same time stood up and replied. Zhongkang, when the time comes, you can help Zilong select soldiers. Liu Bei was a little uneasy about Zhong Fei and Hua Xiong, so he turned his head and said to Xu Chu, who was standing behind him with a pillar. Hey! Xu Chu didn't have many words, and directly agreed. Xianhe, Wei Xiao, officially send a bow to the 4 parties, since they are destined to come, then give them a step and mediate the 4 parties by the way. Liu Bei directly put Chen Shi's marriage on the table. No matter what Chen Shi said made sense. Those people will definitely come when the time comes. It is better to give each other a step to make everyone look good. It is really rude to come uninvited. Hey! Jian Yong and Liu Yang stood up and said, Jian Yong is good at diplomacy, Liu Yang is good at bragging, and they are good at combining together. Liu Bei swept around the crowd and landed on Fa Zheng, and then retracted his gaze and did not issue official government affairs to Fa Zheng. I dare to ask the Lord, everyone has political affairs. Why is it that I am the only one? Could it be because I'm too young? Fa Zheng clearly felt Liu Bei's eyes passing over him, but he did not explain his government affairs, and Fa Zheng was very puzzled by this, and the young Fa Zheng stood up directly and asked. There is a government affairs that should be handled by Sichuan, but Sichuan is about to get married, and there are many things to be busy with, and I think I am afraid that you will not have enough experience to deal with. Liu Bei hesitated for a while and said, as for Fa Zheng jumping out and asking directly, he didn't care too much. After all, Fa Zheng was still in the excitement period, and he couldn't hold back his restless heart at all. I would like to give it a try, since I have already attended independently, which means that you have recognized my ability. I hope that Xuande Gong will give me a chance to show my ability, otherwise I will sit in this position like a needle felt. Fa Zheng said solemnly, others are not stupid, they can naturally understand the sentence what position, what responsibility, he sits in this position, he should have the corresponding responsibility, and he believes that he can complete the task assigned to him by Liu Bei. Liu Bei turned his head to look at Chen Shi. He was a little uneasy about Fa Zheng. One was because Fa Zheng was a little grudgeful and careful, and the other was also because Fa Zheng had no experience. To be honest, Liu Bei was a little not optimistic about the fact that Chen Shi recommended Fa Zheng to do it. Maybe Fa Zheng would fight with people. Chen Shi nodded firmly. He had other things to deal with. Since Xiaoji is so confident, then the education benefits, veterans benefits, soldiers' allowances, and pensions will be left to you, and remember to go to Sichuan if you are not sure. Liu Bei sighed and still handed over the matter to Fa Zhang, but he did not forget to tell Fa Zhang. Chapter 254 Deterring the Quartet and Ending This Year's War. Fa Zhang was overjoyed when he heard this. This kind of thing is indeed difficult to do well, but doing it well is the best recognition of his ability, so he no longer hesitated and took over the matter on the spot. Sichuan, you take on more responsibilities as before. Liu Bei did not give Chen Shi any government affairs, but he left such a sentence, which means that Chen Shi still has the power to control all civil officials. Hey! Chen Shi nodded and said. After everything was settled, Liu Bei didn't say anything more, but as usual, he set up a banquet to entertain everyone, and Fa Jing ate boiled mutton again, saying that the loss of being hit by everyone before completely disappeared. Chach, I don't care about you, I must do this in my house. Chen Zichuan said to do his own thing, let others go crooked, I don't care what they do. Fa Jing once again strengthened his determination while eating boiled mutton. What a lofty ideal in his opinion. Why didn't those laypeople understand it? By the time the banquet dispersed, it was almost nightfall, and with the advent of the winter solstice, the days were getting shorter and shorter, and the day was less and less, more about drinking some tea, eating some pastries, and making some plans. After everyone retreated, Chen Shi drank a little soup groggily and sat staggering in the living room, waiting for Liu Bei to come later. Zichuan looks a little overwhelmed by alcohol. When Liu Bei came over, he took the maid to prepare a bowl of sobering soup for Chen Shi. I drank too much, I was groggy. Chen Shi drank all the sobering soup in one gulp, shook his head to clear up his brain. Zichuan, are you sure Xiaoji can do that well? If you don't do filial piety well, there will be too many people who will offend. After all, there are a lot of people involved in this matter, just what you said before. Regarding the century-old plan, I am really a little worried about handing it over to Xiaoji. If Feng Xiao is here, it is the best choice to hand it over to him. Liu Bei said a little uneasy. In his opinion, Fa Zheng is really a little young and frivolous, and his heart needs to be tempered more. There is no big problem, Xuan de Gong. You should have confidence in filial piety. Chen Shi said with a smile. Maybe he will hit a wall at first, but soon he will be able to adjust. I hope so. Liu Bei said helplessly. Fa Zheng was a little too young in his opinion after all. Forget it. Not to mention filial piety, you won't let things get to that point. Let's talk about other things. In fact, I don't understand why veterans over 32 years old are transferred. You must know that with our current food and lodging, veterans who meet your requirements should have inner energy, and they are all experienced in combat, and for these people, even if they are 40 years old, they still have quite strong combat effectiveness. Seeing that Chen Shi was unwilling to speak, Liu Bei turned his head and asked the question he was interested in. We need an elite force that is a deterrent on the surface. In fact, as long as we have maintained such food and accommodation conditions, about 2 more years, 30% of our troops should have internal energy. If the current conditions are maintained, up to 3 generations, we should be able to popularize internal gas for the whole people. Chen Shi shook his head slightly and cheered up. Explained to Liu Bei. This is also true with the increase in our grain production. Under the rule of the people, there may be that the older generation may still be unable to cultivate internal qi because of the deficit of the previous body, but the younger generation should have no problem. Liu Bei nodded and said, in this era of extremely active energy, as long as you can eat enough and your body is not lacking, not to mention cultivating to a very high level, at least there is no big problem in cultivating in one breath. In other words, our level of troops will get higher and higher. Chen Shi nodded and said, so the prosperity under our rule is very important to us. Indeed, an army purely composed of soldiers with internal qi and troops without internal qi, even if the military quality of both sides is the same, it is not difficult for the side with internal qi to completely annihilate the other party. Each person is a little stronger, but it is enough for the army to form a crushing formation. Liu Bei couldn't help but look pale when he thought of that situation. The entire Han dynasty lasted for 400 years, probably in the late period of Emperor Jing, and Emperor Wu was able to achieve the popularization of internal breath for the whole people in the early days, that kind of short-lived prosperity, but powerful enough to frighten all enemies. And this time Liu Bei may also create such an era again. Well, there will be chaos in management at the same time as the prosperity under the rule, and the current situation in Fenggao City's Wandegang also sees it. There is chaos in many places, and I don't have much time to control these trivial details, so I plan to directly carry out compulsory management, and at the same time put a strong enough force on the table. Chen Shi expressed his thoughts. Compulsory management. Deterrence? Liu Bei may not have much experience now, and politics is not good, but he still has a clear feeling when brought into the military, and it is obvious that Chen Shi is deterring. Well, those veterans who have retired to urban management are actually not a problem to fight for a few more years, and they are all veterans of 100 battles. This kind of team will be a deterrent to the princes who take the opportunity to come to Fengao in the near future, and when they evaluate our true strength, they will add an organized elite corps. Chen Shi nodded and said, although this team only manages the city's internal management, it is enough to affect many people's evaluation of Fengao. At that time, it will be a mixture of fish and dragons, and it will be difficult for you. Liu Bei thought about what would happen in the future, and he also knew how necessary it was for such a troop to exist. It's nothing, these are not too troublesome things. Chen Shi shrugged his shoulders and said, looking back, I will re-equip these people with weapons and equipment, from a year and a half ago to collect craftsmen, and only now have the armor weapons been manufactured, plus the blacksmiths brought back from Yuzhou before can finally be completed in a hurry. Next year will be the unified dress of the army you said, and all the lower levels of weapons and equipment will be unified, right? When it comes to the craftsman Liu Bei, I think of what Chen Shi said about craftsmen very early. Well, there should be barely enough apprentices next year. Plate armor is too wasteful of iron, can only be equipped for the elite team, other troops should take their time. I have ordered people to redetermine the weights and measures, this time the unified standard, and it can be recycled after the fight. Chen Shi sighed and said, there are too many things missing in this era. Alas, it's up to you to deal with these things. I can't figure it out at all, just give me an accurate data when the time comes. Liu Bei waved his hand helplessly and said, Liu Bei is actually very satisfied with iron smelting, plate armor and other things have begun to equip the legion. What else do you want? This was previously only qualified for generals. All that remains is to end the war and re-sign the covenant. Chen Shi breathed a sigh of relief, under the threat of Liu Bei's powerful military power. If nothing else, he should have enough time to deal with next year. Chapter 255 The Scholar Attacks the Library. Chen Shi knows very well about such a thing as a covenant. It can be said that this thing is used to tear it up, but there is such a layer of things that exists in the short term, and the strength of the two sides will not change much, and no one will be willing to start a war lightly. Chen Shi also needed such a buffer period, and for a period of time he could almost completely accept Qingju under Liu Bei's rule. After that, Chen Shi's life did not change much, and she still maintained the leisure it deserved. Report. A herald appeared in front of the hall and said half kneeling. What's the matter? Chen Shi asked helplessly, looking at the situation. The tea can't be drunk again, there is no way, emergencies can never be avoided. Scholars hit the library. The herald replied. It's really. Chen Shi drank the tea in the cup and sighed and said, this group of scholars is really boring enough. What did Zijian eat? Chen Shi didn't speak. Lu Su directly raised his head and glared at the herald and said, it was nearly 100,000 books of all kinds. Let Huaxiong squat there just a garrison, and now he was actually impacted. General Hua is trying to suppress it, but the number of scholars is expanding. The herald said without humility or arrogance. He knew at a glance that it was Hua Xiong's personal guard, otherwise he would never have seen the market frightened by Lu Su so early. It's really embarrassing. Lu Su said dissatisfiedly, and he didn't know whether to lose Yuzhou people or Taishan people. Zichuan, hurry up and solve this matter for me when you have free time to drink tea, this is the wish you made to them. Let's go together, this group of scum must be divided. Chen Shi said bluntly. The troublemaker is going to die. Okay, I can be regarded as getting out the Charter of Universal Education. You go find it for me, Fa Xiaoji. As for the scholars, let them make trouble first. Lu Su flipped through his notepad and determined that he was almost done with universal education, so he turned his head to the herald and ordered, take a Fei Zheng with him, and it would be easy to talk about welfare when the time came. Hey! The herald is not worried about the scholar breaking through the library. Is it really Huaxiong sleepwalking? What a joke. Scholars attack the regular army. As long as the regular army plays for real, they can teach the scholars what war is in minutes. Your 1,000-character text is good. I haven't seen you mention it before. Lu Su casually pulled up a topic and said, why mention it? This is the literacy textbook I prepared in itself, although this textbook is more magical. Chen Shi said indifferently, this book can be regarded as a typical example of not breaking through hundreds of generations. In the 21st century, there are still people who use this thing to read, something he memorized when he was a child. It is said that Hua Xiong said that a large number of scholars attacked the library, but in fact there were more than 100, and more than 1,000 scholars and Hua Xiong were confronting each other. I hope to borrow books from inside. The interior of the library that Chen Kai said before made all the scholars yearn for it. Of course, this scene also made the merchants of the world see a joke, and now the restaurants near the library are full of merchants from all over the world, just waiting to have fun, but as more and more scholars gather, these people also feel some other things, such as this literate person too much. Big brother, this place in Taishan is indeed good. It is much more prosperous than our Hanoi and Chang'an Luoyang, this Chen Zichuan Tiskei. The Chen family is really blind. The young man lay on the window and looked at the crowd below with a mocking face. Nowadays, if we talk about prosperity in the world, it is only comparable to Nanyang here. Unfortunately, Nanyang has already sunset with the Battle of Yuan Cao, and this place is like the rising sun. The young scholar called the eldest brother smiled and watched his younger brother lying on the balcony and despising the people below. There are many kinds of spiritual gifts here. The most terrifying thing is the spiritual talent flowing above the sky. I actually can't offset it, which is really surprising. The young man's eyes flashed with a hint of brilliance, and he looked up at the sky gate and said with a little curiosity, then looked in the direction of the government office in the city, and silently withdrew his gaze. Okay, my brother, can you obediently not use your spiritual talent? Your eldest brother, I have been mentally weakened by your toss. You don't know that your spiritual talent is fully turned on. It is simply a trouble. Your brother can take you everywhere without any trouble. You think I am easy. If you mess around, your brother's spiritual talent will be offset by you, and we will sleep on the street at night. The young man known as the eldest brother held his forehead with a wry smile on his face, and was really helpless for his younger brother. If he had a choice, he promised that he would not bring out this troublesome brother. How could he awaken his spiritual talent on the road? Your sister, you're only 13 years old. Okay, you a 13-year-old kid awakens to a hairy spiritual talent, you still let others live. What are you afraid of, big brother? As long as you wave your hand, I don't know how many princes are willing to lean over and invite you. The young man said with a smile, but he also listened to his brother's words and no longer used his spiritual talent to test the spiritual energy scattered above the sky. Zichuan, what's wrong with you? Lu Su looked at Chen Shi curiously and asked. I don't know why, I just felt some weird aura. Chen Shi said a little embarrassedly. Can he say that he felt someone tickle him? Oh, so that's it. Lu Su nodded and said, without asking any more questions. After a while, the herald came over with Fa Zhang, who was wearing a loose Confucian robe and yawning with fluffy hair. Zichuan, Zijing, what are you looking for me? I still have a lot of things to do. Fa Zhang looked at Chen Shi and Lu Su with slightly scarlet eyes and said, how is the education and welfare of the scholars? We have a primary template for the welfare of the scholars. You can add it when the time comes. Chen Shi shook the teapot slightly, and gave Fa Zhang a cup of tea with leaves. It's a finished product. Fa Zhang scratched his hair and said, poured all the tea into his mouth, and didn't feel that it was too hot, chewed the tea leaves and swallowed it, and then threw the notepad he brought to Chen Shi. That's it, you see if there is any problem, I think it's very good. Chen Shi handed half to Lu Su, then picked up the other half and started reading, quickly browsed through it, and finally concluded that Fa Zhang was really a miser, and there was not a single word of money in the entire welfare, all of which were social benefits, as well as some honors and special powers. Chen Shi looked at Fa Zhang strangely. What did this guy think? How is it? I'm doing a good job. Fa Zhang looked at Chen Shi proudly. It's really good, it's too good to grasp the thoughts of the scholars. In other words, the benefits you give to the soldiers should be based on money, supplemented by honor. Chen Shi nodded and agreed with Fa Zhang's proposal. Chapter 256 Young man. You don't understand people's hearts. That's natural. I secretly used when his intelligence organization to investigate 700 or 800 scholars at all levels during this period. And then my talent came out as soon as it was integrated. It was too simple. Those who could become scholars were not short of money. What they lacked was honor, status, and special rights, so I gave them all. Fa Zhang said proudly. Fa Zhang's spiritual talent for analyzing people is really easy to deal with this kind of thing. Although it is a headache to study 700 or 800 people to find out the commonalities, but it can ensure the validity of the results. Just do it, but add a welfare of the same level to exchange for money and grain. Chen Shi guessed that there was indeed no big problem, so he added this one, and Xiaoji, you have done a good job, this level is meticulous enough. More than 100 ** evaluation standards, representing more than 100 different benefits. The ultimate benefit, can borrow books from the collection at any time, can apply for their own book publication every 10 years, can directly supplement official positions, and can report to the state to ask great scholars to write biographies for them. This benefit is really leveraged, but after reading those requirements, Chen Shi knew that Fa Zhang was directly joking. Okay, if he could do these things, as long as people wanted to be an official in Mount Tai, Liu Bei would invite him, and the book he wrote would also be published. As for borrowing at any time, I am not ashamed or impatient to use the books in the library as my own books. As for the above conditions for writing a book and establishing a biography, naturally someone will write a book for you, okay? It's okay, there are always some people who are short of money, and it is okay to convert benefits into money and food. Fa Zhang waved his hand and said, indicating that Chen Shi was casual. He had no problem. In fact, I found that these benefits are basically short. But why are many people chasing such an aim? The word fame and fortune is inevitable throughout the ages. You are still young and not short of money, your official position is also very good, and the title is also within reach, and you will be able to save fame sooner or later, so naturally you have no desire, but for most people, it is a lifelong pursuit. Chen Shi patted the certificate on the shoulder and said, this is why our group of people doesn't seem to have any idea of corruption. After all, we are too young, and to be honest, if it weren't for the troubled times now, I guess no one would be able to sit in my position. Yes, the governor of Qingju. The Marquis of Guanay, less than 20 years old, a position of 2,000 stones. Lu Su took over the stubble on the side. If this is placed in other times, Sichuan may not be able to survive for the rest of his life. Of course we do. As for now, we are already young and successful. So, young man, you don't understand people's hearts. Chen Shi patted Fa Zheng on the shoulder and said, although Fa Zheng can analyze what others want, what they want to do, and what they are for, but he still doesn't understand people's hearts. The current Fa Zheng is not the one who caused trouble at home because of the Fufeng War, and he had no choice but to enter Sichuan and work as a county magistrate for 20 years without making it out. The whole person is distorted middle-aged Fa Xiaoji. Now Fa Zheng is still his father, a great Confucian, and he made up for an official position at the age of 15 and is ready to take office. In an unhappy mood, he fired his boss and directly skipped work and ran away for most of the Han dynasty to Mount Tai, and at the age of 17, he already held the position of Prime Minister of Qi, which was considered a success. In addition to some grudges, it was more of a young and successful situation. At least recently Fa Zheng had the courage to write a letter to his family to report the current situation. In other words, it is completely smooth sailing now, there are no disasters and difficulties, and it is natural for the eyes to grow to the top of the head, so naturally I will not look down on the thoughts of those Yuzhou scholars, and the gap in vision. If this was on the depressed Fa Zheng who had been suppressed for 20 years, he would naturally understand. I don't understand people's hearts. Fa Zheng was stunned for a moment, and then scoffed at Chen Shi's evaluation. His spiritual talent is to analyze people. You're joking with him now that you don't understand people's hearts. You too, don't toss. Maybe Zijian is annoyed now. Lu Su saw that Fa Zheng had the courage to fight with Chen Shi and hurriedly pulled the fight. There was no way, since he had a formal official position. Fa Zheng was not afraid of Chen Shi at all, and he was accustomed to talking back or something, and he was young and successful tilde. The human heart is very complicated. For example, Feng Xiao abuses you every day. You still think about him coming back to compete with him, and even you yourself understand that you are definitely not an opponent. Why go to abuse? Chen Shi stretched out his hand and pushed the chair away, and said with a smile as he walked out, "Who said I wasn't his opponent?" Fa Zheng was like a cat with his tail stepped on and his hair was blown up directly, and he was most entangled with Guojiao now. Look. Chen Shi spread his hands and walked out helplessly. Lu Su sighed, got up and drank all the tea Chen Shi poured for him, and followed him out, leaving Fa Zheng to look at the teacup angrily, as if staring at Guojiao's malicious smiling face, wishing he could squeeze it into a ball. Guo Feng Xiao, let's come back and go head to head. Fa Zheng jumped to the chair where Guojiao used to sit and pointed at the chair and roared, then seemed to let out a sigh, shook his hair crookedly and walked out with a proud face. In a military camp in the north of Licheng, Guojiao sneezed, and Guan Yu asked curiously, "Guojunsha is a little cold?" Tan Ji ordered someone to boil some ginger sugar water and cook a big rooster. Hey! Guan Ping's voice came from outside the tent. "Ch, it's not so much a cold that I feel that Xiaoji is provoking me, and I don't know what that guy has done." Guo Jiashan said naggingly, "You can eat the chicken cooked by Tanji." Guan Yu glanced at Guojiao and chose to add food to his son without hesitation. He was the only son, and he was very similar to him, and he could also work hard under his hands, which Guan Yu liked very much, but Guan Yu would not show his love at all. "Okay, I'm cold," Guojiao said helplessly. "Let's test Zhongjiao and Zhou Lan. Although our task is to suppress the other party and prevent them from going north, but we always need some military merit. How about Tanji as a pioneer?" Guan Yu had the intention to hone his son. He was 16 years old, and it was time to open meat and kill 1 or 2 generals to practice his hands. Well, it seems that Zhongjiao and Zhou Lan are the whetstones he prepared for his son, and he has learned that the 2 guys on the opposite side are just the pinnacle of qi refining. In this case, Guan Yu is not worried that his son will have problems. Even if it is also the peak of qi refining, Guan Yu is confident that his son is definitely better than the same level, not to mention leapfrog killing. At least he will not lose his momentum. It's also possible, but it's also a challenge. I heard that Zhong Xianyi is clever in his military operations, good at arranging camps, and is good at using the terrain, so it's not good for us to let him show it. Guo Jiao said with a smile on his face. Guan Yu didn't understand it very well, but he knew very well the ability of Chen Shi's group of people, and naturally he would not underestimate this seemingly thin Guo Jiao. The last time he followed Liu Yi's guy, the endless schemes made Guan Yu in awe, and this group of people did not have a fuel-saving lamp. Chapter 257 Guan Yu, Wei Yang, Guan Ping. He is clever in using troops, good at arranging camps, and good at using terrain, so he is still a wise general. The chapter is updated. The fastest Guan Yu touched his proudest beard and opened his eyes slightly. He was tossed by Chen Shi for more than a year, but he could be regarded as able to speak. The other two of the four court pillars of Hebei, Yuan Benchu, put these two people here, not to mention that it is quite appropriate to put Zhugong and also in the Bohai Sea, but now Zhugong and the center of gravity are in the north, giving us an opportunity to take advantage of it. Guo Jiao said with a smile. That's good. Guan Yu touched his beard and nodded. The next day, Guan Yu used Wei Yang and Guan Ping as the vanguard to feign an attack on Yuling. It is said that Wei Yang, who escorted Jian Yong and Liu Yang back from Jingzhou, has had a very good life recently, and he used to want to make contributions when he was studying martial arts in Jingzhou. But as a result, even if he has martial arts and knows how to lead troops, not many people are willing to use him, and the centurion is Wei Yang's position. In addition, Wei Yang's personality is relatively arrogant, and he can't get along with the vast majority of Jingzhou people. In this case, it is said to be tempering, but as long as you are not stupid, you will know that it is impossible to stand out under those Jingzhou families for more than 10 years. With this awareness, Wei Yang suddenly felt extremely disappointed, and at the same time he saw Liu Bei's recruitment order posted in Jingzhou, and at that time Wei Yang had a consciousness to go to Qingzhou to see. However, due to some miscellaneous matters, as well as the failure to persuade his comrades in arms to go on the road together, Wei Yang delayed for more than half a year and did not go, and when Jian Yong and Liu Yang came to Jingzhou, Xiangyang was broken by Liu Biyu, and Wei Yang, who had no drag, directly followed Jian Yong and Liu Yang to Qingzhou. It is said that Jian Yong is humorous and his own ability is average. But the good thing is that I am not jealous of others, and I found that Wei Yang is indeed talented along the way, but he has an arrogant personality. Not very gregarious, not good at talking, and red in color. Found no, the above conditions are simply a copy of Guan Yu. To be honest, if Jian Yong hadn't known that Guan Yu was indeed unable to make a 10*** son in 20***, Jian Yong would have felt that Wei Yang should not be Guan Yu's own son. It's too similar, if you want to say that Guan Ping is similar. This one is simply like a god, so Jian Yong wrote a letter of recommendation for Wei Yang to mix with Guan Yu without saying a word. This is also the time to operate. Wei Yang took Jian Yong's letter of recommendation to find Guan Yu. Not to mention that Guan Yu and Jian Yong got along. Just say that Guan Yu saw Wei Yang. These two people are like fate. Guan Yu admires Wei Yang very much. To a certain extent, these two guys have the same personality. And Wei Yang saw Guan Yu's divine power. Instantly moved his admiration for Huang Zhong to this boss who looked abnormally like him. Guan Yu did not directly promote Wei Yang, although he appreciated it, but it was just to throw Wei Yang and his son together for education, go to Qingzhou tomorrow to save the people, and go to Qingzhou to catch some bandits the day after tomorrow. Guan Yu never thought that one day he would find a young man similar to him. If he hadn't been sure that he had never been to Jingzhou, Wei Yang's life experience would be innocent. Guan Yu occasionally thinks about whether this guy got into romantic debts when he got into trouble. It's too similar. He came out in the same mold as him. Although Guan Yu also knew that this guy was not his son, compared with his son, Wei Yang and him were more compatible, and naturally Guan Yu treated Wei Yang very well, and he had a feeling of leveling up with a large trumpet. General Wei, are we going to challenge like this? The general let us make our own choices. Guan Ping said to Wei Yang on the side. Let's challenge first. By the way, make the team a little scattered, and the barracks will be a little disgusting, so that I can lure the enemy at night. Frankly, how about you squat outside and be a reinforcement for me? Wei Yang turned his head to Guan Ping and said, his eyes looking at Guan Ping now were a bit like looking at his brother. So I'll set up camp, and you'll be stationed outside. Guan Ping knew what was going on as soon as he heard it, and it was obvious that Wei Yang wanted to give him credit. No, maybe people won't come to sneak attack at that time, and you will squat all night without gain, and you will be covered in dew, so you should squat outside. Wei Yang waved his hand and said. Guan Ping sighed. Fortunately, this is him. He knows who this buddy is, and if other generals were to be very dissatisfied with Wei Yang's words. In that case, then I'll squat outside the camp. Guan Ping said helplessly, Wei Yang is a good person, but he just can't speak, and good things can make people angry when they come out of his mouth. In Leiling City, Zhong Zhuo and Jiao Lan sat together discussing how to deal with Guan Yu's invasion. The two of them didn't know much about Guan Yu, and learned from the last attack on Bahai that the other party was a supermaster, and Liu Bei's second brother, but it was not very clear how to lead troops to fight. After all, Guan Yu now has no amazing record, and every record is covered by Chen Shi's brilliance.
Report. The herald roared and rushed in. What military news? Zhong Zhuo turned his head and asked.
The enemy General Guan Yu vanguard has arrived 30 miles away from Leiling City, and the number is about 5,000, and Guan Yu's headquarters is still marching here 100 miles behind, and the enemy vanguard is Guan Yu's eldest son Guan Ping, and Yang Wei Yang.
The herald read the detailed military report. You step back. Zhong Zhuo signaled that the herald could leave.
Yang Yi, do you think we want to swallow Guan Yu pioneer? Jiao Lan stared at Zhong Zhuo. Since the last time they were captured alive by Guan Yu, both of them planned to have the opportunity to let Guan Yu feel their anger. Guan Yu is not a large number of people, but the troops of Tai Shitzi and Zhong Bie and Liqing are also quite large, and there are quite a lot of Tunchen soldiers left by Zhao Zilong. Once they enter the war, I am afraid that Guan Yu will mobilize a large army to press Leiling. Zhong Zhuo didn't say whether to fight or not, but talked about the situation between the enemy and us. Swallow Guan Yu's vanguard and cheer up morale, so that even if Guan Yu mobilizes a large army to press the border, we are sure to hold Leiling, and the current defense of Bahai Sea has certain loopholes, and we can't increase the pressure on the rear. Jiao Lan said strongly that Zhu Shou's troops forced Yuzhou, which caused the guard strength of Bahai County to drop a lot, but he left Zhong Zhuo Jiao Lan to defend Qingzhou. In that case, we will send troops out of the city to test it first. Forget it, or let me go out of the city to test it. How about you stay to guard Leiling? The scouts still can't be reassured, and think about it after seeing it with your own eyes. Zhong Zhuo also agreed with Jiao Lan's suggestion, and then cautiously said that he would test it by himself. After all, if you hold for a long time, you will lose, and the war is about morale. As long as the morale of Leiling is high, and the morale of Guan Yu's army, which was thwarted by the vanguard, is low, it is much easier to defend. Coupled with the approaching winter, it drags on until the first snow falls and Guan Yu has to retreat, which is much easier for Bahai than to defeat Guan Yu. Okay, in that case, let Yang Yi go out of the city to test, and I will stay in Leiling.
Jiao Lan nodded and said. Chapter 258.
Guan Ping set up camp according to Wei Yang's request, and soon a camp that looked full of loopholes was made in Guan Ping's hands.
Wen Chang, how about this?
Guan Ping came to Wei Yang excitedly. For Guan Ping, who is not old now, his father is very worthy of worship, and this comrade in arms who looks abnormally like his father is very trustworthy.
Frankly, there must be a degree to lure the enemy.
Wei Yang said helplessly, a little like taking care of his brother. You see, you set up the camp like this. As long as the other party's brain is normal, we know that there must be a problem. We have to show that we are newcomers. We have never been on the battlefield. We can have problems, but we can't all be problems. Guan Ping scratched the back of his head, laughed twice ha ha ha, and went to set up camp again. This time it took a little longer, but at least with Wei Yang's eyesight, he didn't see the loophole instantly, and after staring at it for a long time, he finally saw some problems, a little like a novice who was not familiar with the problems caused by setting up camp, and some places were obviously repeated.
How about this time? After Guan Ping finished it, he came to Wei Yang again.
It's almost, but I'm worried that the other party won't be able to see it. I stared for a long time before I saw that you left a loophole. If the other party can't see it, it will be bad. Wei Yang said helplessly. He was a little worried about the level on the opposite side. Just like the empty city plan for Liu Biyu to use, people like Liu Biyu would definitely rush to kill directly, no matter what flattering you are.
Why don't I change it again?
Guan Ping was stunned for a moment, and asked with a wry smile. He suffered a lot when he was a child, and he knew to be careful.
Don't change. Wei Yang waved his hand and said.
If the other party can't see that they haven't come to attack at night, it means that the other party is a garbage product. Guan Ping nodded repeatedly. If he couldn't see the loophole he deliberately left, it would definitely be garbage, but he didn't think about the meaning of Wei Yang's words. Seeing that the night raid is still garbage for Wei Yang, both horizontally and vertically treat each other as garbage, which is really arrogant. Report, the general and enemy General Zhong Zhuo led 2,000 infantry and cavalry to challenge. Just as the two were about to eat something to inspect the camp and prepare to challenge in the afternoon, the herald ran over and said, HMH, this guy is not small. The enemy commander actually went into battle himself. Wei Yang said disdainfully. He shook his hand and motioned for the herald to leave. I think I'm here to test it. Guan Ping wiped his Daguan knife with a rag. How about letting me cut him? Okay, I'll press you down. Wei Yang thought about it, although Guan Ping was not as good as himself. But the strength is not bad, and Zhong Zhuo on the opposite side heard that it is the peak of qi refining into a gang. Even if he loses, there will be no accident with himself. Zhong Zhuo sat on the horse, staring at the camp set up by Guan Ping. To be honest, in Zhongzhuo's opinion, the layout of this camp is already good. In addition to a few complicated places, there are loopholes in a few places, and Zhongzhuo did not directly find loopholes at the first glance, and if Zhongzhuo had not been on the battlefield for a long time, he would not have noticed those loopholes caused by less experience. It seems that they are indeed two novices, and all the mistakes made are made by me before, so there is an opportunity to take advantage of them. These places are not well arranged to allow the patrol troops to pass. When the time comes, look at the performance of those two guys. If they are young and vigorous, they can try a night attack.
Zhongzhuo thought silently.
The level of the camp is still good, but unfortunately it is too tender. How dare the bold enemy general peek into our barracks?
Guan Ping rode a green gelding and rushed out. HMPH.
Zhongzhuo was slightly happy, and then his face returned to his original expression. He himself was here to test. Guan Ping was so impatient that Zhongzhuo was a lot relieved.
Bell.
The swords and guns collided, and Zhongzhuo slightly relieved his strength and had an understanding of Guan Ping's strength, and then the horse was facing Guan Ping.
Zhong Qianyi.
Remember that it was Guan Tanji, the son of Guan Yu, who killed you.
Guan Ping turned his horse and roared loudly.
Zhongzhuo sneered. If Guan Yu said this, he would just pull the horse away without saying a word, but with your Guan Ping strength, he. Zhongzhuo waved a big gun and fought directly with Guan Ping, and both sides danced into a ball when the energy exploded. But after all, although Guan Ping was young and brave, he was quickly suppressed by Zhongzhuo's fierce and sharp big gun. There are so many strong people in this place in the Central Plains. Wei Yang's eyes stared at Zhongzhuo hotly. He could feel that Zhongzhuo's current strength was almost half a pound and 8 taels as his, and they had reached the peak of qi refinement, but they didn't know how to break through. Guan Ping frantically attacked Zhongzhuo in front of him, but each blow did not work, but let Zhongzhuo grab the floor of his attack and give Guan Ping several ruthless moves. The situation became more and more bad for Guan Ping, and Guan Ping, who was new to the battlefield, also had no experience in dealing with this situation, and couldn't help but be a little flustered. However, in a panic, Guan Ping still tried his best to defend while accumulating internal energy, but unfortunately all of this was seen by Zhongzhuo.
Give me death.
Guan Ping followed his father's approach and melted all his energy into the next knife, and slashed towards Zhongzhuo with an indomitable momentum. Zhongzhuo, who had been on guard for a long time, did not panic when he saw this move, although he had a feeling of hair standing on end for the danger that was about to come at that moment, but his spirit was excited.
Good coming.
Zhongzhuo roared and dodged Guan Ping's attack, but due to the speed problem, it was still rubbed, and a muscle on his arm flew out directly, and the blood was stopped by Zhongzhuo as soon as it gushed out, and then a shot that was already ready was stabbed directly at Guan Ping. Guan Ping, who released a unique move, was obviously a little sluggish, and when he saw a shot stabbed at his chest, he barely flashed to the left, only to hear a poof. Guan Ping's right shoulder was taken away a large piece of flesh, but unfortunately Guan Ping now does not have the ability to open his jaw, only to see that his right shoulder is bleeding continuously.
Come on, save the general.
Zhongzhuo's men rushed up the moment they saw Zhongzhuo injured, and Wei Yang did not hesitate, directly led his men to rush up. Both sides were rescuing their own generals, and then Yuan Shaobing slowly retreated under the leadership of Zhongzhuo, and Liu Beibing directly fought a chaotic battle under the leadership of Wei Yang, and finally ended the temptation after leaving more than 100 corpses. After Zhongzhuo returned to Leiling, he was relieved after bandaging it casually. He could actually avoid the previous knife, but it was just to give Guan Ping and the others a hint that he was injured and would not come at night. After all, for Zhongzhuo, there was one less piece of flesh on his arm, and it would be fine if he didn't hurt his muscles and bones for 3 or 5 days at most. Guan Ping sat in the camp with a sluggish face. His injury could not be healed in half a month, but he could be regarded as finding his own problem in a life-and-death fight with Zhongzhuo. But now that he and Zhongzhuo are injured, the other party will come to rob the camp?
Yang Yi, you are actually injured?
Jiao Lan asked in surprise. I don't think the opponent will go to that level. If I go head-to-head at that level, I'll die. Zhongzhuo said speechlessly. I was injured on purpose. The other party was also injured, and both sides were injured, you know.
Well done.
Jiao Lan understood what Zhongzhuo was thinking when he heard it, to say that they might have paid attention to such a thing as robbing the camp before, so now the probability of the main generals of both sides being injured and robbing the camp will drop significantly. I have already seen the problem of their camp, and when the time comes, I will draw out the part of the camp I see, and the two of us will find the best route to teach them a lesson. After Zhongzhuo bandaged his arm, he waved it twice and said with a smile on his face, Ha ha ha, you are really powerful. You have done so many things in such a short period of time. Jiao Lan said with a smile. Wen Chang, do you think their main general is injured and will come to rob the camp at night? Alas, I actually have to recuperate. Guan Ping said helplessly, taking the camp robbery a lot lighter. It's coming. Wei Yang said flatly, saying that Wei Yang himself had no bottom in his heart, but his face did not change at all, and he said calmly, "In that case, the main camp will be handed over to the chief clerk, and I will be squatting outside the camp tonight." Guan Ping bandaged his wound in the medical soldiers, poured a bowl of ginseng powder special for generals to replenish vitality, and waved his right arm, a little unable to exert his strength. "You sit in the Central Army, I'll go outside, it's cold in late autumn night, you're not injured, it's not good if you get injured and then get cold dew." Wei Yang stared at Guan Ping's arm and said. Chapter 259 The Embodiment of Wisdom Recited Through the Ages. During the riot of the scholars in Fengyao City, a carriage slowly entered the city gate at the east gate of Fengyao. This Fengyao is really prosperous. I remember that when my father left Mount Tai, the gap between it and now is very big. This Chen Zichuan is only about the same age as me, but this ability is envious of me. A young man dressed in white looked at his younger brother and said with emotion, "Ahem, let's go to the library. No matter what, I must see the library with 100,000 books," as Chen Zichuan said. The young man looked at his brother with a pale face, and the brilliance in his eyes was shocking. "I have met my uncle's request, and I finally delayed the departure time, and I don't want to be Pang Xuan's junior brother. Alas, Kong Ming, if you continue to be so demanding, something will happen to you sooner or later. Your talent is already unique. Why should you be thirsty for this time? Pang Xuan is only 2 years older than you. Why do you have to suppress him?" Zhuge Jin said with a wry smile. Zhuge Jin's younger brother is the most terrifying teenager Zhuge Jin has ever seen. Drawing inferences is not enough to explain his brother's horror. He himself awakened his spiritual talent at the age of 18 and was already extremely proud. Pang Xuan awakened his talent at the age of 14 is already trembling, and as a result, he is now sitting opposite a 12-year-old who has awakened his talent, and understands what his talent is in one day. He's too arrogant. I need to make him understand what reality is. Zhuge Liang opened his eyes, and the brilliance in his eyes flowed, making Zhuge Jin smile bitterly. His younger brother has been talented and easygoing since he was a child, but he can't play with Pang Tong anyway. One is that Pang Tong always felt that he was standing in front of Zhuge Liang, and all his light was blocked by Zhuge Liang. The other is also because Zhuge Liang occupies all the piano, chess, calligraphy, and painting, and his appearance is talented. Astronomy and geography, the art of war, and 100 battles go hand in hand. It's like hanging existence. Genius and genius can never coexist peacefully. In fact, Pang Tong is quite low-key in front of others, but as long as he meets Zhuge Liang, his eyes are wrong. Well, if he is not right, don't mix together. But Pang Tong likes to find trouble with Zhuge Liang, and the same gentle Zhuge Liang has a feeling that crushing the other party is the king when he sees Pang Tong. Not long ago, Pang Tong awakened to his spiritual talent. Then he came over to show off, and then there was nothing to say, and Zhuge Liang became like this that day. It is obvious that Zhuge Liang was molested by Pang Tong and awakened his spiritual talent prematurely, which resulted in him not being able to bear that godlike talent at all now. Zhuge Jin was simply envious of his brother's spiritual talent. As long as he opened it, he would automatically have all his talents. It doesn't matter if it's passive or active. Civil officials and military generals, as long as they are comrades in arms, Zhuge Liang's talent is directly given to the line. In short, after seeing this talent, Zhuge Jin realized that maybe God is really going to come to an all-rounder, an all-round genius. Looking at this talent, Zhuge Jin knew that his younger brother's future was limitless, and the more powerful his teammates were, the stronger Zhuge Liang would be. Think about the 5 tigers, Chen Dao, and Wei Yang in history, and Jiang Wan with the dragon and phoenix law. How ferocious was Zhuge Liang when he was in this super luxurious lineup, and then think about how weak Zhuge Liang was when Liao Hua, the general of Shuzhong in the later period, was he a pioneer? Is this really a person? Of course, he is alone, but the buffs hanging on his body in the early stage are almost able to slaughter the gods, and in the later stage, the buff on his body, the opponent is still a demon with Sima Feng's talent to fight for intelligence, and Zhuge Liang has become strong to that extent. When Zhuge Jin envied Zhuge Liang was also smiling bitterly in his heart. If he had a choice, he would never awaken his talent so early, but when he was stimulated by Pang Tong, he directly forcibly awakened his talent as soon as his brain was hot, and as a result, although he now has spiritual talent, the mental pressure on him is too strong. God knows how he can awaken such a big pit. Well, for others, the extremely demonic spiritual talent, in Zhuge Liang's view, is completely a pit of awakening failure. The first spiritual talent to let Zhuge Liang use it normally around the clock without pressure. The amount of spirit required in Zhuge Liang's opinion must be obtained at the age of 25 or 16. Second, this spiritual talent carries too many spiritual talents will lose their lifespan. Others can't feel it. Zhuge Liang, who can pinch and count, won't know? Zhuge Liang estimated that he should be full of spiritual talent with a Pang Tong, and then he would lose his lifespan if he continued to carry it. Thinking of this, Zhuge Liang felt that a string in his head was broken, and he couldn't help but tease Pang Tong. Thinking of this, Zhuge Liang had an idea of strangling Pang Tong. If he woke up normally, his mental capacity was enough, and he couldn't lose his lifespan. This was the perfect talent in line with his image. Okay, now this is obviously a defective product. I was so angry with Pang Tong. Is Kong Ming still uncomfortable? Zhuge Jin saw that Zhuge Liang was a little dazed, thinking that Zhuge Liang's body had not yet recovered, so he asked. It's nothing. Zhuge Liang shook his head slightly. As long as I don't turn on my spiritual talent for a long time, there will be no problem. However, I am curious if the amount of spirit circulating above the sky is a bit too large. It is obviously a spiritual talent, but there is no way to use it. I think it should be the spiritual talent of one of the ministers of Fengyao. It's normal for you not to use it. We are not friends with them, and we are not on one side with them. Zhuge Jin smiled and said, use less of your strength. You awakened too early, and you are too strong. It's different. It's completely impossible to use. Not the kind that can't be used because of restrictions. Zhuge Liang looked up at the carriage above his head and said, his eyes seemed to be able to see the spiritual power flowing above the sky. You mean you can't use it at all? Zhuge Jin was stunned. If I remember correctly, this means that even if he is in the same camp as the one who has spiritual talent now, it is impossible to use it. Well, no, I'm curious whose spiritual talent this is. Zhuge Liangmian said curiously, but not much surprised. In his opinion, there are many strange people in the world, and it is normal that there are one or two that he can't use. Forget it, don't dwell on these things. We'll know when the time comes. Let's do what we have to do. Although my uncle agreed to our request, but by the beginning of next year, moving to Jingju is already doomed. I think you will also go to Lumen Academy to study at that time. Zhuge Jin gave up the idea of continuing to pursue other people's spiritual talents, and just knew his own. Lumen Academy, I'm only interested in the collection there, of course. If the Taishan Library really has 100,000 books, I have my own way to convince my uncle. Zhuge Liang said calmly. He really had no interest in studying at Lumen Academy. He didn't want to go to Pang Tong's territory. He would only let Pang Tong come to his territory. If Chen Shi knew that Zhuge Liang had such an idea, he would definitely reprint it overnight, and make 100,000 books on the day he opened the library, but unfortunately he didn't know. Chapter 260 The Advantage of Youth. Zhuge Liang is now very glad that his talent is active. If he passively estimates that in a place like Liu Bei's spiritual talent that is full of the ground, at most 5 years, his lifespan of more than 100 years will be exhausted. After all, as far as this talent is concerned, no matter whether Zhuge Liang is satisfied or not, the effect is leveraged, and when necessary, it will be open non-stop for a month. As long as his comrades in arms are powerful, Zhuge Liang can slaughter the gods this month. The effect is good, but the disadvantages are also great. Thinking of this, Zhuge Liang has an impulse to strangle Pang Tong to death, and he actually crippled that second goods. Chen Shi had no idea that the two most murderous figures in the Three Kingdoms era had come to Fengyao, and he was still watching the scholars who wanted to enter the library to make trouble, saying that in the Han Dynasty, a dynasty where civil officials could become military generals at any time, each of these scholars had a little bit of inner energy. If you can afford to read, you will naturally be able to afford to eat, and if you can afford to eat, you will have internal energy, so these scholars are more or less a little guilty, and a lot of hulala is actually really scary. Go and tell them that the person who once made them a wish is here, and those who are willing to come stand on the left, and those who are tied up stand on the right. Chen Shi ordered Hua Xiong's personal guards on the side to go and greet him. Chen who has an order, the scholars who are willing to come to Fengyao stand on the left, and the tied up stood on the right. Hua Xiong's personal guards rushed over without fear and roared. Uncle Ji, take care of this group of people for me, and I'll go protect the military division. Since Hua Xiong was arrested by Chen Ji that day, the two hit it off at first sight, so Hua Xiong got a recruitment document. Get Chen Dao to his own subordinates as a military marquis. It is said that Hua Xiong had a legion of 7,000 people, and after getting Chen Ji over, he said that he was a military marquis. But in fact, Chen Ji was assigned 3,000 people to take with him. One was to avoid suspicion, and the other really admired Chen Ji. Don't worry, I won't be able to pass here. Chen Ji said impatiently. He planned to take route here recently. Anyway, he was alone, and he was quite satisfied with Mount Tai. At least there is no shortage of this military book. Hearing a soldier's message, and seeing the expressionless man in white standing behind the soldier leading two young officials, he knew that this goods were probably Chen Shi. As for counterfeiting, this is unlikely. As long as the head is fine, no one will do such a stupid thing in Fengyao. Looking at the young man behind Chen Shi, these scholars also guessed that these two were probably high-ranking officials in Qingju. To say that the biggest gap between Fengyao and other places is the high-ranking officials in Fengyao are very young, and the higher the official position, the greater the real power, and the more likely it is to be a young person. Marquis Chen, since you said you gave us the power to borrow at the beginning, why do you want to send troops to garrison it now? Isn't it a word that is not trustworthy? A certain scholar did not wait for the scholars to divide into 2 rows and step out first, and he was very suspicious of the collection of books in the library, if it weren't for Chen Qibo's reputation. He also entered the library and said that there were indeed nearly 100,000 books. Now this is not the banner, but doubts whether the 100,000 books Chen Qi said exists. Did I say? Well, it's right to take it out of context, but I even said that the scholars should be divided into left and right groups. Chen Qi glanced at the other party casually. Sima Yi, who was sitting on the balcony of the restaurant, looked at the scene below with a hint of sarcasm, and was extremely disdainful of the scholars below. Please also ask Chen Hu to explain why we don't give him the right to borrow it. The leading scholar said strongly. I just said that there is a library, I didn't say that I will lend it to you, you are not qualified to give me conditions now, I give you an opportunity, it is a skill to catch it, if you can't catch it, then I'm sorry. Chen Qi said with an indifferent face, this is Feng Jiao, he is full of confidence. This is different from what I said before. The leading scholar said angrily. If you are not satisfied, you can leave, what I said is known to those present, I didn't mention the library, it's just a grant of land, the library is a benefit, I can give it to whomever I want. Chen Qi said nonchalantly, he didn't mention the opening of the library, he kept talking about giving land. Just Li Yu was talking nonsense. As for the household registration, do you scumbags? By the way, entering and exiting the library requires qualifications. This is a book, nothing else, I want to do good deeds, but I can't show it to anyone. Do you have the qualifications now? I think you know for yourself, besieging a family to rob a family's collection. What kind of crime is this? I think you also know. Chen Qi lazily said things that frightened all the scholars. It seems that you all know what kind of crime this is. I don't want to worry about you. We have dispersed, and soon the provisions on how to have the right to borrow in the library will come out, and you will know when you read it. Chen Qi squinted his eyes and said, 90% of these scholars are from the crowd, and Chen Qi is too lazy to know what the leader thinks. Anyway, it is not allowed now. Those who have already stood on the left and right sides before can come over. Chen Qi said casually, he was here to divide these people. Hearing this, those who stood on the left and right, no matter what purpose they had before, walked to Chen Qi's side this time. Congratulations. You have the qualifications to borrow books. Go to Li Wenru to apply for household registration. Chen Qi's casual arrangement made those scholars who blindly followed before like being struck by lightning. If they had known that they could get household registration by moving left and right, why didn't they remember to move 1 or 2 steps before? No matter how annoyed the others were, the 30 or 40 people who were recognized by Chen Qi were all ecstatic. Zijian, send someone to take them to Wenru and ask him to issue a household registration certificate. Chen Qi turned his head to Hua Xiong and said, this is a trick of dividing and dividing. Anyway, this group of people is like this. Hua Xiong looked at a few people with a you are lucky expression, and then found a personal guard to take Chen Qi's seal to find Li Yu. The first batch of people to see the household registration thing naturally have to be taller. Regardless of those people bowing their heads and stomping, Chen Qi's consistent style is so casual, originally thinking that the trouble was more ruthless, so he brought Lu Su and Fa Jing over, but now in this situation, Chen Qi has no pressure. Glanced at the leading scholar, many of the scholars who came with him were looking at his back with resentment, and then looked at the guy's grey face to know that this guy was unlucky, offending so many people at one time. Chen Qi couldn't stand it anymore, alas, he was evil. Zijian, you continue to guard the library. Chen Qi signaled Hua Xiong to leave him alone and go about his own business. The military division can be summoned if there is something, and the mail is on call. Hua Xiong nodded and said, then walked back to where he was standing before. Chen Qi glanced at the scholars who were still watching and did not leave, looking at the group of onlookers who were hesitant to speak. Chen Qi turned his head and left, he was too lazy to ink here with this group of people. Chen Qi turned around and was about to leave, when there was a noisy sound behind him, guessing that if he took 2 more steps, there would probably be a fight later, who made the leader so nervous at the beginning. Zijing, Xiaoji, you go and deal with your own government affairs, I'll go see Chu Hanmu, I don't know how he is doing things. Chen Qi listened to the screams behind him, tugged at the corners of his mouth, and did not look back, but asked Lu Su and Fa Jing with a smile. Alas, self-inflicted. Lu Su sighed and said, TSK, look, this is the name. Fa Jing t-scared and said it was a strange way. Chen Qi stomped his feet and glanced at Fa Jing. Sure enough, everything has advantages and disadvantages. At least I have not experienced the kind of depressed Fa Jing all year round, and I see the biggest temptation in life very lightly. Chapter 261 is in the stage of job change. Does Zhongda want to go in and take a look? 100,000 books of all kinds. Chen Zichuan is really generous. Sima Lang poked his head out without grace, looked at the scene below and asked with a smile. I'm interested in those books, but I'm more interested in these papers. A touch of ridicule appeared on Sima Yi's face, extremely disdainful of the scholars below, and also a ridicule of the inability of the world's aristocrats to find books. Don't think about this. Chen Zichuan also seems to belong to the all-round type, including the details are not omitted. For example, the magnificent momentum of this library seems to us to be afraid that it will not be less than hundreds of millions of dollars. But I bored to investigate Chen Zichuan's previous style, a copperplate as a character used as 10, TSK. Sima Lang said with emotion, either the actual cost is not large, or someone has donated it, both possibilities. Big brother, I think it's necessary for us to stay in Fenggao for a few days. This place is good. Sima Yi withdrew his gaze and said with a smile on his face, on the food on the table. I also have this idea. Taishan Fenggao is a place for me to take a good look at and learn from it. Sima Lang said indifferently, he was very interested in the current system of Taishan Fenggao, which was prosperous. Zhuge Jin in another place was also saying the same thing. Zhuge Jin, who was determined to become an excellent civil official, had an idea of seeing more and learning more about the extremely prosperous Fenggao. Well, just looking at the previous situation, there is another building, and the recent retirement rumors, I think the opening time of the library is not far away. Zhuge Liang nodded and said. Zhuge Liang was very satisfied with this place in Fenggao, which was more prosperous than Zhuzhou. It is also more energetic than Zhuzhou, but unfortunately this kind of prosperity seems slightly confusing to Zhuge Liang, who has come along the way, but he does not despise it. Zhuge Liang knew very well that this was just an incoordination brought about by the rapid rise. Even if it took a long time, he would recover on his own, and this step was inevitable in every place from poverty to wealth. Just this restaurant. Zhuge Jin watched the Mi family restaurant walk in with his younger brother. HMPH, the Mi family, the head of the 5 wealthy merchants? This one. Sima Yi swayed left and right, looking at the surrounding stores unscrupulously, and then stopped in front of the Mi family restaurant. Without the Mi family who became the strongest and richest man overnight at the end of thousands of years. Sima Yi's mind flashed the situation he had learned, and he walked towards Mi Zhukai's restaurant with the arrogance of a century-old family on his face. Jingju Lumen Academy. Shu Shu has begun to enter the state after a year of study. However, because this guy was born as a gangster, the bandit spirit on his body after more than a year of study has not disappeared, and the vast majority of students in Lumen Academy don't like Shu Shu very much, and of course Shu Shu doesn't like them either. Boom! Shu Shu put one foot on the door. Then the reflex grabbed the door. In the past, when I was a gangster, I never used to open the door with my hands, but after more than a year of study, I still can't resist the habit of 10 years. But I have also developed the habit of kicking the door and then reaching out to grab the knocker. Yuan Ji, you can just come in directly, don't worry about that door. Pang Digong's helpless voice came over. Since his brain pumped Shu Shu, his door in Lumen Academy had changed several times. Pang Gong, I'm here, do you have any classic books for me? Shu Shu was a hooligan mixed with the nondescript temperament of a scholar, and passed through the hall and came to Pang Digong. Just find a place to sit down. Don't say anything to Shu Shu about the teacher-student gift. Pang Digong found that Shu Shu was a good seedling who grew crooked at that time. Cutting off the heavy length is another pillar, so he planned to accept Shu Shu as a disciple, but Pang Digong was actually stunned by Shu Shu's theory of a set of hooligans in the world. How to say, although Shu Shu's metaphor is very indecent, it regards the Han dynasty as a small city, with rich households, poor people, hooligans, and officials, which is actually in line with the situation, and the goal is nothing more than to become the boss. Pang Digong was greatly surprised, so he took Shu Shu to the Lumen Academy he opened, and did not say that he would accept him as a disciple, and Shu Shu was in the stage of second-class gangsters at that time, and he did not admire Pang Digong very much. Usually the old man was long, the old man was short, and Pang Digong was non-committal, and Shu Shu also took the title of Pang Digong's year-end in Lumen Academy. After a long time, Shu Shu also understood, but at that time he changed his words and said that he wanted Pang Digong to accept him as an apprentice, where to put the spirit of being a gangster for many years. Just because Shu Shu didn't struggle, anyway, Pang Digong would write out any insights, and when he taught others, he would write them himself. At most he would take some books from his house and talk about it. Shu Shu just had to rub his face here with Pang Digong. These are for you. Chen Zichuan asked me to give them to you. Pang Digong looked helplessly at Shu Shu, who was still a bit of a hooligan, and sighed and said, he is a good seedling, and the good quality is almost comparable to Zhuge Liang and others, but it has grown crookedly, and now it has actually begun to sprout chaotically. For Shu Shu, Pang Digong has the intention to educate himself, but he is extremely powerless. This guy is too worry-free, and now he has actually begun to learn the art of war, scheduling, formation, and commander. Pang Digong has wanted to tell Shushu several times that he may become a very good strategist staring at a door, but you are obviously playing the piano randomly, and you don't want to lose your gangster skills to learn these things. You are learning to command troops now, and if you want to be a commander, you should think more about whether it is suitable or not. Several times he hinted that Shushu practiced a subject, but Shushu shook his head, with a look of brother being a genius and an invincible expression, which made Pang Digong very helpless and had to let it be. Maybe he was really a genius, and he learned it all.
Chen Zichuan?
Shushu thought about it. He doesn't seem to have such a friend. Giving a book is a big gift, and it is also a good thing for this kind of paper wire binding to top a car. Which local tyrant? Well, recently Shushu has been in a state of ignoring what is happening outside the window and only reading the books of sages, but it is precisely because of this that he will have the level that a second-rate civil servant should have in a short period of time. In other words, if Shushu's progress is to let those students who look down on Shushu in Lumen Academy know that it will probably spurt out a mouthful of old blood, this speed of progress. Liu Xuanda's military strategist Chen Zichuan asked me to hand it over to you. Pang Digong said helplessly, you had better pay attention to the general trend of the world recently. An excellent commander, strategist, and civil servant need to have their own unique views on the general trend of the world, and it is not advisable to work behind closed doors.
Xuanda Gong.
Shushu was stunned for a moment, and then was overjoyed. I know that Xuandegang will not forget me. Thank you, I will go back to read. You continue to rest, I will ask you if you have any questions. Shushu came when he said, he left when he said, he didn't have the demeanor of a scribe at all, and in this situation, Shushu would probably always maintain such a situation before washing away his gangster habits. Chapter 262 Yuan Shoes. Shushu slipped back with the book to continue studying. As for Pang Digong's words to seize the time to study the general trend of the world, Shushu basically has no interest. This guy is from a gangster. The biggest hobby of the gangster is to take advantage. In Shushu's view, the general trend of the world is not understood by himself. Others will definitely understand, as long as people with some ability can say a bend. Since all the people who are a little bit of a pound can say a bend, what effort does it take to make themselves? As for the unique opinions, isn't it all some details? As long as the general direction is right, isn't it also a way to run over directly if you are strong enough? As for the last time he saw Xuanda Gong, he needed to blow the general trend of the world. Shushu had already prepared the materials. As his friends, Kui Juping, Shi Guangyuan are all good hands who blow the general trend of the world. If you can't do it, you still have Pang Digong. Shuijing Sima Hui will definitely tell you what to pay attention to when the time comes. The general trend of these four people must be 90% compatible, 10% private work. When the time comes, they will be 90% compatible. Go all the way and listen all the way, and mix some of the private work of these four people with the general trend of the world will not come out. Well, Pang Digong didn't know Shushu's thoughts. If he knew that he would definitely slap him up, why would he be lazy to such an extent? Looking back at Nanyang, Lu Biyu had already accepted Cao Cao's benefits, but because Cao Cao was more stingy and only gave half, it meant that Lu Biyu beat Yuan Shu and then gave the other half, and as a result, Lu Biyu, who took the benefits, turned his head and went to his brother Zhong Yong without saying a word, who was Sotu and Yuan Shu head to head. Or in front of you Cao Cao. My Lu Biyu IQ is really as low as your Cao Cao? After seeing this scene, Cao Cao was angry. He almost sent troops to block Lu Biyu, but fortunately he was persuaded by Zun Yu, but Cao Cao, who was despised by Lu Biyu, completely destroyed his idea of subduing Lu Biyu. Lu Biyu, who was untrustworthy, Lu Biyu, who was a slave with 3 surnames, and Lu Biyu, who killed his father. But no matter how Cao Cao scolded, he couldn't change the fact that he was played by Lu Biyu. Looking at Yuan Shu's troops under Wancheng, Cao Cao finally realized the gap between himself and Yuan Shu, a super tyrant, and the reason why he was pressing Yuan Shu before was just because Yuzhou was a mess by Liu Bei, and Yuan Shu couldn't free his hands to mobilize the army. Now in late autumn, it took Yuan Shu several months to finally restore the messy environment in Yuzhou, and he no longer needed the army to suppress the chaos within Yuzhou, so he no longer hesitated to directly mobilize the army and prepare to educate Cao Cao. Of course, there is also the reason why he was slapped in the face by Lu Biyu. I'm afraid there are 100,000 in this army. Cao Cao stood at the head of the city, wiped a handful of sweat and said with a gloomy face, "This is too terrifying. This Yuan Shu beat Liu Biao as a son not only because of Lu Biyu. This strength is still very strong. The total number of regular soldiers and auxiliary soldiers is 120,000. After the restoration of Yuzhou, Yuan Shu immediately transferred his troops, and there was also a reason for Lu Biyu's departure. Shi Jizai looked at the army under Wancheng and was amazed. This troops, what made him even more interested in this grain reserve, was too solid. What now? The gap with our estimates is too big. Before we estimated that Yuan Shu was 30,000 people to deal with us, but now there are 120,000 people, and sooner or later there will be traitors in Wanqing. After all, we took over for too long. Cao Cao said with a wry smile. He was proud to think that he could beat Yuan Shu before. As a result, less than 3 months later, Cao Cao discovered that everything was just an illusion. Lord, rest assured, the situation is still in our hands. This farce should end, and the time to play with Yuan Shu should also be over. Shi Jizai sneered and said, they estimated that there would be such a result at the beginning, and naturally there were ways to deal with it. Do you Yuan Shu really think that having more soldiers and generals is strong? Alas, the strength of this Yuan family is really strong. Yuan Benchu defeated Gongsun Buague, held Jizhou and Bingju. Yuan Highway defeated Liu Biao. If it weren't for Liu Xuan sending troops to Yuzhou, now Yuan Highway has crossed 3 states. Cao Cao looked at Yuan Shu's endless barracks under the city with some envy. Tens of thousands of veterans, and veterans like him who had barely trained for a year were completely two concepts. It's a pity that this Yuan Highway doesn't know the weather, and he doesn't know the military plane, so he wasted a great opportunity. It's a pity, it's a pity. Shi Jizai said with a sigh. After all, Yuan Shu's current strength is very enviable, but there is no real heroic talent, and Ji Ling, who can get the best at it, is just a good general, and he is quite far from the top. Unknown military aircraft? Cao Cao was happy, which means that Shi Jizai already had a plan to break the enemy. Yes, Yuan Highway really thought that winter was coming and no one would send troops. Liu Xuande, the only prince of the 4 directions who had the ability to send troops to his homeland, was not enough. How could there be such a bargain? Pouring out of the nest, bringing the strongest attack power also led to the emptiness of the rear, and Yuan Gong's borderline was too long. Shi Jizai said with a sneer. In Shi Jizai's view, it was time to end this farce, and now the soldiers have basically seen blood, and all that remains is to start a long-term small-scale battle with the southern part of Nanyang as the battlefield. On the one hand, the continuous small-scale uninterrupted battle wore out those Yuzhou nobles based in Nanyang, and expanded Cao Cao's not-too-rich treasury to facilitate a more stable takeover of Nanyang. On the other hand, it is also to give Liu Biao hope to continue to support, so that he can see that he has been consuming Yuan Shu's strength. Of course, it is indispensable to use Yuan Shu's hand to train troops. As for what kind of hell on earth will become in the south of Nanyang in the end, the life and death of those hostile aristocrats have nothing to do with him. In other words, even if his own aristocracy is destroyed. As a humble background, Shi Jizai will not fluctuate much. The Lord doesn't need to worry, he will see you in 3 days at most, but Yuan Highway will move in the future. Runan is really a good place, but unfortunately it was moved by Chen Zichuan, and I don't know what Miaoze moved back. Shi Jizai said helplessly. Yuan Shu's brain always seemed to him to have a hard injury. Runan and Nanyang are next to each other. Yuan Shu's office, the Yuan family's hometown of Pingyu and Nanyang Wanqing in a straight-line distance to support the forced march for 2 days. In this case, Yuan Shu actually dared to empty the rear to attack Wanqing. This is to give away the head. If you have a map, you can take a look. It is said that Yuan Shu did this in history, but Liu Biao cut off the food route. This guy often plays this kind of self-destructive martial arts. Cut off the grain route to Runan? Cao Cao was stunned for a moment, and then understood everything in an instant. He was completely frightened by Yuan Shu's 100,000 troops, and now he thought that the 100,000 troops would be empty. Isn't this giving away heads? Then he quickly found a pen to write the matter of the food breaking on his underwear, and this would be his trick in the future. Simple and straightforward, straight to the point. To be continued. Chapter 263. It turns out that I have always wanted to save this era. In the case of Shi Jizai and Zun Yu and others not knowing, Cao Cao secretly contacted Chen Gong and asked him to help kill Liu Biyu on the way to Zhongyang. In other words, Chen Gong and Cao Cao still have a very good relationship with Cao Cao when there is no dead side to let go. Coupled with the grace of support, Chen Gong is very capable. Cao Cao actually admires Chen Gong very much. This is also why Cao Cao clearly knew that he gave Liu Biyu grain and grass as sheep into the tiger's mouth, but he still gave it, because Cao Cao took a fancy to the Bingju Wolf Rider and Liu Biyu's 8 strong generals. Liu Biyu he didn't like it, but it didn't mean that he didn't like those people. Just like Zhong Liao he was very satisfied. Zhou Shun was also very satisfied with the wood, and he admired the other Cao Xing, Song Xian, Hao, Meng, and other people, plus the more than 10,000. Bingju Wolf Riders Cao Cao appreciated even more. It is very likely that Chen Gong will make some preparations to kill Liu Biyu. Don't look at Cao Cao did not take Chen Gong out for a walk, but from Shi Jizai to Cheng you all know that Chen Gong is actually very strong, but unfortunately he is not good at adjudicating on the spot, and his own spiritual talent is also disgusting. If Zun Yu is pretending to be dull, then Chen Gong is really slow to react. Well, just slow to react, but not stupid. On the contrary, Chen Gong is very good at taking his time. If he is given enough time, even if he hits the top civil officials, he can press the other party, and even hit several top strategists can fight loudly and colorfully, and there will be no collapse of the situation, of course. This is within a certain period of time. Shi Jizai once used a talent of Chen Gong, and finally had to give up helplessly. After all, this talent dropped by 10% in the 5th dimension after taking the initiative, and it entered a state of unresponsiveness. Then accumulate 1/10 of the descending 5th dimension, that is, 1% of the total, and call it when needed. Because of this, Chen Gong most of the time has a talent to make himself look stupid. But when something really goes wrong, Chen Gong directly opens the positive talent, calls some or all of the accumulated 5th dimensions to open it directly, and he can instantly slaughter the god alone. This is also why Chen Gong initially rebelled against Cao Cao and Lu Biyu, and when he was fighting the Battle of Puyang with Cao Cao, I was forced to go. Cao Cao's 5 strategies plus a voter under the Cao family general actually fought with Chen Gong, and he was almost burned to death by Chen Gong. If it weren't for Lu Biyu's dazzling eyes at that time, plus a twitch of his brain, he would not have recognized Cao Cao's soldiers. I also forgot to add a halberd to the soldiers, and the Wei state was already over at that time. Think about how ferocious Chen Gong was at that time. One person chose a group of strategists who were almost the fiercest in the world at that time, and finally fought a decisive battle. It even has a slight advantage. But in other words, Cao Cao's advisory group is not vegetarian, forcing Chen Gong to constantly turn on positive talents every day, consuming savings, and finally directly abolishing Chen Gong, from a godlike demon to a mortal. After that, there was no chance for Chen Gong to accumulate again, and the endless provocation of Lu Biyu to find trouble for Chen Gong were all very small, but they had to stop accumulating to solve them, so that Chen Gong did not accumulate much 5-dimensional things throughout the year. At that time, it was destroyed before it had time to explode. Cao Cao also knew Chen Gong's ability, so he felt that as long as Chen Gong tried his best, he would definitely let Lu Biyu, who passed through Yangju, go and return. More than 10,000 Bingju wolf riders plus 8 fierce generals all became his own, and in an instant he was strong again. However, Cao Cao was still worried that his strategy would not be passed by his men. After all, if he accidentally messed up, the hard-to-stable Yangju would be a mess by Lu Biyu, and God knows how many people would die, which was not in line with Zun Yu and others' policy of cultivating and recuperating in the rear and clearing the fields in front. With so many considerations, Cao Cao would rather pretend that he was brain-dead for a while and believed Lu Biyu's words, and then complain to Shi Jizai and others every day rather than tell the truth. After all, this kind of practice of treating the people as nothing under the rule is indeed a bit unkind, and as long as you win anything, you can say anything. This is Cao Cao's idea, wait for it to become an established fact, and get great benefits. Zun Yu and others will not care about these things. Cao Cao believes that Chen Gong will make the established facts for him, and he will do very well. Similarly, Cao Cao also believed that Chen Gong would definitely carry this black pot himself, and even created the fact that Lu Biyu plundered the people first, and then he had no choice but to fight with Lu Biyu and take Lu Biyu or something. In short, Cao Cao believed that Lu Biyu could not make any waves in the hands of Chen Gong in an open state, and no one would think of this matter on his head. He had never shown how smart he was. However, it is obvious that Cao Cao never imagined that Chen Gong would meet Lu Biyu's eyes, and his dead heart for the right eyes collapsed, which simply made Cao Cao feel unreasonable. This is unscientific. His killer feature was directly taken away. I will take it. Does Lu Biyu have the aura of the protagonist? Okay, not to mention how Cao Cao would feel when he knew that Chen Gong gave birth to a kind of Lu Biyu who was his destined boss after meeting Lu Biyu. Even Cao Cao thought that he was perfect, and the plan of someone in the black pot who automatically memorized it had been seen by someone in Wanqing. Lord Cheng Yu did not wear a Confucian-embroidered robe, but wore the armor of a military general. That tall figure and a strong muscle, if he hadn't known that this was a remembrance of his subordinates, Cao Cao would have thought that this was an officer under a certain general of his own. After all, this internal breath of qi refining into a gang was not blown out, but actually cultivated, as a few fellow practitioners who were able to go into battle and cut people. Cheng Yu was one of the best. What is Zhongde? Cao Cao was more curious about the question. Shouldn't Cheng Yu teach Cao Ren how to arrange the formation in the rear camp at this time? The Lord is impatient, Lu Fengxian is not so easy to deal with, Chen Gongtai is too upright, it may backfire, although he is also resourceful, but this kind of thing is not suitable for him. The Lord has this idea before should let me go. Cheng Yu looked at Cao Cao and said calmly, for a ruthless person like Cheng Yu, if he can swallow all the strength of Lu Biyu, he won't mind. You must know that he is the first ruthless person in history to officially propose human flesh for military rations, plus the first ruthless person to do this. For such a ruthless person, the dead point is drizzling tilde. Cao Cao was slightly stunned. How could he be seen by others if he consciously did it seamlessly? However, even if the hero was exposed, he looked at Cheng Yu without changing his face. When Ruo and Gongda can be regarded as upright gentlemen, the long article is a little too pedantic. Jisei may feel something, but it is not easy to be sure. Only I can be sure that you must have done this.
Cheng Yu stared at Cao Cao and said,
in addition to benevolence, the ruler must also be ruthless enough. Sometimes the problem that the righteous path cannot solve, the evil path can solve it, then it should be used. This troubled world has reached this point. To end it must have enough strength. No matter how this strength comes from, even if we step on the corpse, when we are strong enough to change this era, we are qualified to save others. Even if it dirty my hands, dirty my heart.
Even if my virtue is lost, I will not change my dream of a peaceful world. Cheng Yu stared at Cao Cao and said.
Cao Cao heard this kind of words for the first time. This kind of words that were completely different from traditional etiquette, but they were so shocking that many of his early experiences came to his mind. The five-colored stick obviously did a good deed, but he was forced back to his hometown, and if it weren't for his father's turnaround, he would probably have died. After that, he entered the court again and killed the eunuchs with Taifu and others, but he did not want to be harmed by them. Then the Yellow Turban Rebellion bravely killed the enemy and became the Prime Minister of Jinan. Political and religious affairs are popular, and the county is peaceful, but unfortunately he returned to his hometown again soon after. General He Jin summoned foreign ministers to the capital, but he advised against it, but he was not employed. False edict, the princes of the 18th route attacked Dong, and after burning Luoyang, he chased Dongzhuo alone, and scenes appeared in Cao Cao's eyes, and it turned out that he wanted to save the Han dynasty so many times. To end this troubled world, we must have strength, dirty my hands, pollute my heart, and make my virtue detrimental, but I will not change until death. I want to end this chaotic era. Even if I am scolded for 1,000 years, I will end this era. Cao Cao looked at Cheng Yu and said solemnly, no matter how difficult the road ahead is, I will swear to be with you to the death. Cheng Yu knelt down. Chapter 264c Who ambushes whom? Chen Gong looked at Cao Cao's envelope and couldn't help but feel a little unhappy. What is this? If something goes wrong, you have to take the blame yourself, and more importantly, a person who will die too much if you are not careful. This matter. Chen Gong regained his original intelligence and began to think about the current problem, and after thinking for a long time, he planned to meet Lu Biyu to see how the other party was, if it was really amazing or not to do it in Yangzhou. Of course, if the other party really had a brain problem, Chen Gong felt that it was better to help Cao Cao clean it up. This article is written by Starting. Turning back to Wei Yang and Guan Ping, after the two of them switched, Wei Yang squatted outside with 2,000 men and horses, and Guan Ping led the remaining men and horses to set up defenses in the barracks, ordering the night to loosen the outside and tighten the inside, and the soldiers and generals all slept in their clothes. Lei Leing's jaw has now drawn the camp of Guan Ping that he saw, and marked out the mistakes and omissions in every place. Since Yang Yi is injured, I will lead people to attack at night, and you stay in Lei Leing. How about it? Zhou Lan read the drawings of the camp, silently memorized it, raised his head and said with his jaw open. Okay, but please be careful. In case something goes wrong, retreat immediately. I will wait in the city. If I don't return for an hour, I will send troops to rescue. Zhong Zhuo nodded, but the caution of the military general made him still say something unknown. Zhou Lan's face froze, and then he smiled and said, don't worry, I will be careful, and please take care of it a little more. Zhong Zhuo nodded, and then lowered his head to continue studying the loopholes in the camp, but did not notice the complexity in Zhou Lan's eyes. He was also the four generals of Hebei, and he did not have the force of Yang Liang and Wen Chou. The wisdom of commanding the troops is also weaker than Zhong Zhuo's, and many times when he mentions the four generals of Hebei, he is a bit like an addition. After Zhong Zhuo and Zhou Lan studied Guan Ping's camp, they let their soldiers eat and start resting. Prepare for a night raid at night. Except for a few patrols and scouts who were basically ordered to rest after eating, the veterans among these soldiers instantly knew what might happen. Most of them kicked dry food and tied it to their trouser belts, and then slept with weapons and clothes, and years of military experience let him know that there might be night raids at night. Report. With a loud roar, Guan Yu, who was 100 miles away, had already obtained a detailed military report ahead. Pinger is actually injured. Guan Yu's hand holding the Qinglong Yangyu knife couldn't help but tighten. In a panic, he also forgot that he should be called by the name of the table in the barracks, so he directly called out the name of the milk and quickly browsed the military newspaper. Looking at the detailed map of the camp arranged by Guan Ping, Guan Yu handed the general report to Guo Jiao with an iron face. Guo Junsha, look at this information. There is no problem with Tanji and the chief of the text. The layout of the camp. Guo Jiao looked at the latest military situation and instantly guessed what Guan Ping and Wei Yang wanted to do, so he smiled and put down the general's newspaper and said to Guan Yu, congratulations to the general. Tanji has got a bit of the general's true inheritance. This is just a strategy to lure the enemy General Zhongjia to come to the door. Guan Yu was startled, and instantly understood, and then a rare smile appeared on his face. My son got ahead, and I was very satisfied as Lao Tzu. But thinking that his son was actually hacked, Guan Yu instantly became depressed. Guojia knew what Guan Yu was thinking as soon as he saw Guan Yu's expression. His son was slashed for the first time on the battlefield. Guan Yu was in a good mood to be strange. Guojia thought about the detailed information, remembered the details of the jaw being stabbed, and suddenly a smile crossed the corner of his mouth. General Guan is willing to come with me to Lei tonight. Guojia asked with a smile, maybe we can take Lei tonight, and even if we can't take it, we can rob and kill one of Yuan Benchu's generals. Lei? According to us, it is probably no less than 100 miles here, and at this time, the army is afraid that even the vanguard will not be able to catch up. Guan Yu touched his beard and said, lead the guards and school swordsmen, and you should be able to catch up with them now. Guojia said with a smile. The other soldiers galloped in Lei overnight under the leadership of Zhong Xuangao. Feng Xiao is sure. Guan Yu no longer called Guojia by the alienated name of the military division, but changed it to the word table. 5 to 5. But I believe we are more lucky. Guojia smiled and said, if we are lucky enough, we should be able to take Lei, let the focus of Bohai return to the south, and by Gongsun Buegui some time. That's right. 5 achievements are enough. A smile flashed on Guan Yu's cold and majestic expression, and after saying that, he walked outside with his Qinglong Yangyu knife. Zhu Kang. Guan Yu roared. The last will be. Zhu Kang roared. Order my school knife men and tell them to prepare dry food and water. 4 hours. That is, before midnight, we are going to attack Lei. If you can't do it, I will allow them to withdraw. Guan Yu yelled at Zhu Kang. Hey! Zhu Kang replied loudly. Soon the 500 school swordsmen were all in order, all carrying machetes and riding a horse, and then under the leadership of Guan Yu, they prepared to attack Lei. Let's go! Guan Yu roared, and when he clamped the horse's belly, he rushed out first. Guojia poured a sip of wine into his mouth, and also ran out with Guan Yu. No matter what, he also had a bit of a martial arts foundation, although it was enough to kill 3 or 2 weak chicken recruits. That night, Guan Yu ran all the way, but he still didn't arrive at Lei before the hour of the hour. To be precise, the hour of the tiger had passed. After all, Guojia is too high on his physical fitness, and he is about to scatter his bones halfway. But Guojia didn't worry about this. He didn't go to rescue Guanping himself. He went to rob and kill. It's nothing late, as long as he can rob it. Anyway, when he passed by Guanping's camp from a distance, it was obvious that there was no chaotic fire, that is to say, the night raid did not start. However, Guojia and Guan Yu heard a roar from Guanping's camp not long after passing, and then heard a series of fighting sounds under a fire. It seems that we are lucky. No one should be able to find us 10 miles away. Guojia said pantingly, I overestimated my physical fitness. General Guan don't care about me. Quickly go to ambush between Lei and Tanji barracks. Once the enemy passes, if the opponent has more soldiers, he will cut the middle, and if the opponent has few soldiers, he will attack head-on. I think General Wei and General Guan Xiao will also take the opportunity to pursue. Guan Yu looked at Guojia's situation, and listened to the shouts of killing 10 miles away, and knew that it was too late, so he said, Zhu Kang, lead 10 soldiers to guard Feng Xiao. If something happens, only you ask. Don't worry, General, I, Zhoutsang, will protect the military division. Zhu Kang replied solemnly with a clenched fist. Guan Yu nodded, and then left 10 soldiers directly towards the place pointed out on Guojia's map before to prepare for the ambush and night attack failure to retreat Zhou Lan. But he didn't know that he did not wait for Zhou Lan at that time, but waited for Zhongjia, who led 3,000 soldiers to come to the rescue. Chapter 265. Thousands of troops kill the enemy generals in front of the battle. When the night was ugly, Zhou Lan led 2,000 infantrymen to open the city gate with copper coins in their mouths and carefully ran towards Guanping's camp. In the same way, after midnight, Guanping had woken up all the soldiers under his command, so that they could stay in the camp and not move. As for Wei Yang had led 2,000 soldiers out of the camp and lay a mile away, although the night was cool in late autumn, but these people were all soldiers with better physical fitness, and there was no cold. After Zhou Lan left the city, Zhongjia had a bad feeling hovering between his eyebrows, and he had the intention to call Zhou Lan back, but there was no good reason, so he had to walk around the room a little bored. An arrow shot a soldier patrolling the camp. Zhou Lan roared and rushed directly into the camp, and then the soldiers led by Zhou Lan also rushed into the camp suddenly, and after stepping over several camps and tents were extremely empty. Zhou Lan instantly understood that the situation was not good. Kill me. Guanping rode out of his horse and roared loudly, and a large number of soldiers from all directions directly emerged, and the clouds were densely connected, and then Guanping led them directly towards Zhou Lan.
Form a formation and retreat slowly. Seeing that the situation was not good, Jiao Lan directly issued the order to retreat without any hesitation, but because there were soldiers killing on the left and right fronts, Jiao Lan did not dare to order direct retreat. Poof! The barracks themselves were not too big. Jiao Lan entered the barracks in front, and before he could set fire, Guan Ping killed him and surrounded him on 3 sides, and before Jiao Lan stabilized the formation, the 2 conveniences had already begun a close combat. Jiao Lan calmly glanced at the current situation, and did not hesitate to choose the strong man to break his wrist. After all, without seeing the other General Jiao Lan mentioned by Zhong Zhuo, he already understood what he was going to face, and sometimes there was more experience than wisdom and terrifying, especially Jiao Lan, who had accumulated experience between life and death. In such a dangerous situation, even if you rely only on instinct, you know what is the most correct choice. Throw kerosene. Jiao Lan roared, regardless of the distance, directly ordered the kerosene to be thrown forward, and then the torch also fell in the direction of the kerosene. Artilda was drenched in kerosene, and then ignited, and soon many people were on fire in the place where Guan Ping and Jiao Lan met in short combat, and Jiao Lan was finally separated from Guan Ping's front army. The rear army turns to the front army. The left and right shield soldiers followed closely behind the spearmen in front, and the crossbowmen were ready at any time. Jiao Lan roared and withdrew directly along the same path. After Wei Yang saw some soldiers rushing up, he led his soldiers lying on the ground to slowly climb towards the camp. However, it is clear that many people have fallen asleep after lying on the ground for a long time in this weather. Kicking those sleepy people awake, Wei Yang carefully crawled forward. He was going to make a surprise attack. Then before he could suddenly attack him, he found that the enemy soldiers were retreating. That is to say, Guan Ping did not bite, secretly scolded for bad luck. Wei Yang no longer hesitated, directly got up and rushed in the direction of Yuan Shaojun with a big knife, shouting while rushing. Left. Jiao Lan heard the roar on the left, and the original fearful situation was instantly swept away, and what he was most afraid of was that the ambush would not appear. The pressure caused by being frightened and not being able to relax is great, and as long as the ambush occurs, even if the loss is a little greater, there is no need to worry about being attacked. The ambush method of ambushing on all sides is not calculated. In other words, no one can use it, and no one can carry it. Shoot arrows. Jiao Lan listened to the footsteps, calculated the distance between the 2 sides, step by step, and finally reached the optimal attack distance of the crossbow arrow. No longer hesitated, roared, and the only wave of crossbow arrows shot directly in the direction of Wei Yang. Damn! Kill me! Seeing that his subordinates were shot by a wave of crossbow arrows to nearly 100 people on the ground, Wei Yang's blood-red eyes roared and jumped in the direction of Jiao Lan. The first time he went out, he estimated it very well, and the other party also entered his own ambush circle. Why is the matter no longer under his control as before? Why does the other party seem to be prepared? Wei Yang had too many questions and wanted to grab Jiao Lan to ask, but there was no way to get close to Jiao Lan, because Jiao Lan didn't give him a chance to go head-to-head at all, and directly blocked Wei Yang with a team of elite troops, and almost killed Wei Yang directly under the swords, guns, clouds, and foot battles. But precisely because of this danger, Wei Yang finally understood why he couldn't get away from his personal guards. After Guan Ping handed over the horse to Wei Yang and Guan Ping led the soldiers to kill in the direction of Jiao Lan, and did not kill the enemy first, but led the soldiers to find ways to suppress Jiao Lan little by little according to Guan Yu's teachings. Although he stabilized the formation at the beginning of the beginning and held the idea of fighting and retreating and waiting for rescue, there was no good way to besiege from all sides against Wei Yang and Guan Ping, who did not underestimate the enemy and only slowly accumulated advantages. At 3 o'clock, Zhong Zhuo had already estimated that something was not good, and the 5,000 infantry cavalry, which had already been ordered, rushed directly towards the Guan Ping camp under the leadership of Zhong Zhuo, this time not for the sake of attacking, but only to deter the enemy so that Jiao Lan could be safely brought out. General, the city gate of Leiling has been opened, and the other party has appeared with no less than 3,000 infantry and cavalry. A military marquis said to Guan Yu. 3,000 people? Guan Yu touched his bearded hand for a moment, and then slowly began to stroke his beard, and after a long time, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and the victory or defeat was in this move. You listen to my orders. I am alone on the road waiting for the other party, and when I behead the enemy commander, don't delay and kill directly. Take advantage of the chaos to destroy the other party for me. Guan Yu thought of a strategy that only a warrior can do, a strategy that combines bravery and the opponent's defense. General, you can't. The guards were taken aback. You wait and prepare. I'll go guard the road and see how I kill the enemy general in front of 1,000 troops. Guan Yu drove his horse directly towards the center of the road, and his guards were stunned for a moment, looking at each other, quite overwhelmed, and had no choice but to follow Guan Yu's arrangement and ride a horse to hide.
Guan Yu rode his horse and took a deep breath, suppressing the distracting thoughts in his heart. He was now a little excited. The darkest thing before dawn was this moment, and now it was the end of October without a moon. Even he could only see more than 1,000 meters, and the other party would definitely need to be within 500 meters to see him. The only chance, as long as he would kill with one blow. He would succeed in creating a situation where there was a large army ambush. Chapter 266, Take Lei at Night. When Zhongjia was about 500 meters away from Guan Yu, he saw that there seemed to be a person on the road ahead, and took a few more steps, and the figure in front of him had already seen a rough outline, and when he was about to order someone to investigate, he found that the figure in front of him moved, and it moved quickly. It was as fast as a streamer, and as soon as Zhongjia reacted, the blue light had already brought the huge blade that was 100 meters long to him. Block it for me. Zhongjia had already seen clearly that the person coming was Guan Yu, but he knew better that the other party's target was the head on his neck, and even if this attack was consumed by clouds, the remaining strength of this super attack was enough to cut him into powder, and he should not lead the army in front. At this moment, all the internal energy in Zhongjia's body was mobilized, and he didn't calculate the load on the body at all, and he gushed out the inner energy frantically, and the pitch-black internal energy directly escaped, and Zhongjia finally broke through his limit under the danger of death. But at this time he was not happy at all. He just held a gun in both hands, and stabbed hard towards the huge blade of light. He wanted to live. Boom! Zhongjia barely blocked Guan Yu's attack. Fortunately the faint cloud consumed a lot of power, but it was like this. Guan Yu gathered a blow of spirit, and it was not something that Zhongjia could resist with a temporary lift of qi that had just broken through, and the remaining strength directly smashed Zhongjia's spear into a lump, and Zhongjia himself was also hit hundreds of meters. The enemy is dead. You all follow me to kill the enemy. Guan Yu didn't care about Zhongjia's life or death at all, nor did he care about the emptiness in his body, and rushed directly to the opposite side, and Guan Yu's personal guards roared and rushed towards the enemy in front of Guan Yu's godlike attack. The enemy's unknown situation naturally fled. At the same time, Wei Yang and others, who were more than 10 miles away, also saw the quiet and huge shocking sword light, although they didn't understand why Guan Yu would come, but they also knew that this was a great time. The concubine of the black-bellied gentleman's favored wife. You all fight hard to kill the enemy. General Guan is about to rush here. Wei Yang roared, and then fought hard to kill a whole row of soldiers on the opposite side. And the soldiers led by Guan Ping were originally Guan Yu's subordinates, and naturally they could recognize the quiet sword light, and the originally tired body once again emerged with amazing power after this sword light, and reinforcements were coming. The opposite of Guan Ping's men were Zhou Lan's subordinates, who were demoralized after hearing Wei Yang shout that General Guan was coming, and the morale that was originally brought by Zhou Lan's roar was completely released under the light of that sword. Even the original tight formation, the team that fought and retreated obviously collapsed at this moment. Subsequently, Wei Yang and Guan Ping seized the opportunity to lead their personal guards to kill them, directly defeating Zhou Lan's army, which was already on the verge of collapse. General, hurry up! Zhou Lan's personal guards roared. At this time it was obvious that they were no longer struggling with how to reduce losses, but should think about how to escape. General, retreat quickly, I will wait for you to cut off. Zhou Lan struggled to take half of his personal guards to Wei Yang and Guan Ping's weak defenses to open a hole, and then killed out, but the more than 2,000 people who came with him could escape at this moment, and only more than 100 people could escape at this moment, and after Zhou Lan escaped, all the soldiers surrounded by Wei Yang and Guan Ping surrendered except for the personal guards. Frankly, you left some people to guard the captives, and the others followed me to see General Guan, but this time he clearly lured a general of the enemy. It's a pity I didn't catch it. Wei Yang said helplessly. He still didn't know why he didn't seize such an opportunity in front of him. The Emperor is a thief. I'll go with you. I only need to leave more than 100 people to guard here. I don't know why my father came here. Are we afraid that we will be ambushed by the other party? Guan Ping arranged for a team of soldiers and horses to stay in the camp to guard the captured soldiers, and then ran towards the place where the sword light appeared before. General, the enemy has been defeated by our army, but unfortunately we did not catch the enemy general. The leader of the troops was Hajian Zhongjia, the general who injured the major general. One of his subordinates came to report to Guan Yu after taking advantage of the chaos to defeat Zhongjia's army. I know. Guan Yu stood there with his eyes closed. He was realizing that he felt something different in the previous knife. A rare improvement, but unfortunately, the time was too short to grasp. What special information does Lei have? According to the soldiers we captured in Lei, there should be only 1,000 guards in Lei City now, and the General Zhongjia was severely injured by the general, and it is probably impossible to return to Lei now, and Zhou Lan has gone out of the city to attack at night. Presumably he has been ambushed by the young general, and I am afraid that he will not be able to go back, but it is a pity that our troops are too small.
Otherwise we will take Lei Leiing in one go at this time. The military marquis said helplessly, the good time is a pity that it cannot be used. Once Zhongjia wakes up and leads the defeated army back to the city, there will be no such good opportunity. Stop! With a loud roar from a distance, all the school knife hands who had originally defeated Zhongjia instantly mounted their horses with a wary look and stared in the direction from which the sound came, ready to rush in the direction from which the sound came from. Pioneer Wei Yang, Guan Ping. Wei Yang and Guan Ping reined in their horses and stopped more than 10 steps away from a school swordsman. My local tyrant father-in-law. As a scout, the school swordsman carefully looked at Guan Ping and Wei Yang, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. As Guan Yu's personal guards, they still knew something about the appearance of Guan Ping and Wei Yang. Since they were Guan Yu's sons, then they didn't need to be so vigilant. See the general. Guan Ping and Wei Yang drove to Guan Yu's side, turned over and dismounted, clenched their fists and said, You two are doing well. Guan Yu opened his eyes, and a divine light deeply stimulated Guan Ping and Wei Yang, and they had a feeling that Guan Yu had become stronger and the power on his body had become thicker. Thank you, General, for your compliment. Wei Yang said. Wei Yang will lead you and your subordinates to follow me to capture Lei Leiing at night. Guan Yu restrained his power and said calmly, but that strong self-confidence shocked Wei Yang. It was Lei Leiing, where 8,000 people were stationed, and it was simply incredible to take it at night. Hey! No matter how shocked he was, Wei Yang did not ask any questions with his reverence for Guan Yu, and directly responded. Guan Ping, you go southeast to pick up Guo Junsha to the barracks. Don't have the slightest accident. At dawn, lead the soldiers to Lei Leiing. Guan Yu turned around and looked at his son and said, compared to Wei Yang, in Guan Yu's opinion, his son is not mature, and he still needs to be trained in his hands for enough time. Hey! Guan Ping clenched his fists and said, although he was a little unwilling to participate in the siege, he did not have the slightest dissatisfaction with Guan Yu's approach. Chapter 267 The Brave Generals of the World. Wei Yang led more than 3,000 to nearly 4,000 uninjured, and the morale of the veterans followed Guan Yu, and then under the leadership of Guan Yu to the outside of Lei Leiing city. Under the light of the torches on the city wall, Guan Yu had already seen the panic of the soldiers on the city tower. Guan Yu rode forward, walked within range of the opponent's bow and arrow, looked at the military marquis standing under the city gate tower opposite, and roared, I am Guan Yu, and you and the main general Zhongjia has been beheaded by me. Surrender quickly. Otherwise, the city will be destroyed, and you will die. Bang! An arrow pierced Guan Yu's feet, and then a large number of arrows directly enveloped Guan Yu. But unfortunately Guan Yu only danced his big knife to bounce off all the arrows, and Guan Yu, who did not have piles of elite-level archers, was not worried that he would be shot at all. And let you understand the gap between the two sides. Guan Yu bounced off all the arrows and then said in his voice with a hint of anger, a cloud of blue light suddenly burst out of his body, and the light blade of the Qinglong Yangyu knife soared wildly. Guan Yu seemed to turn into a streamer, with a huge light blade and slammed into the city wall of Lei Leiing city, accompanied by a roar, directly slashing the city wall in the incredible eyes of Yuan Shaojun and Liu Bei's soldiers. Siege the city! Guan Yu roared, and the soldiers on both sides, who had been shocked, instantly recovered. Liu Beijun, under the leadership of Wei Yang, shouted General Shunwei and rushed towards the opening with high morale, and Yuan Shaojun's side had already heard the sound of jingle bells and iron weapons smashing on the ground. Guan Yu stood at the opening of the city wall, his face was slightly pale, and his breath was a little floating, but his eyes flashed with a kind of brilliance. The stuffiness accumulated in his chest was completely vented with a knife before. The city wall shattered, and even Guan Yu himself was shocked. This is probably the first and probably last time in history to cut down the city wall. Just like Master Kong and his father are the only person who carries the city gate alone, and he will definitely not be able to do it again, and some things cannot be repeated. Sure enough, there is still room for improvement. Guan Yu felt the emptiness in his body, his unique skills were constantly improving, and there were too many 3 knives. A knife, only one knife, a knife that cannot be looked down upon. Kill the opponent directly, and the superfluous tricks are all flaws. Liu Biyu, I must kill you. Guan Yu stroked his Qinglong Yangyu knife, and the big knife originally made of iron seemed to have spirituality at this moment. As Guan Yu's fingers crossed, a quiet luster flashed, and the twin dragons of Fang Qian painted halberds were wrapped around me, and my Qinglong Yangyu knife would not be weaker than yours. Holding the handle of the knife, a turquoise flame appeared on the Qinglong Yangyu knife, the dragon's tail coiled around the bottom of the hilt, and the dragon's head bit the head of the Qinglong Yangyu knife. At this moment, Guan Yu finally understood what was going on with the 2 dragons on Fang Qian's halberd, not because Liu Biyu made it to look good, but because of the manifestation of Fang Qian's halberd's power, and now Guan Yu's sword has also given birth to its own power, Qinglong after integrating into its own spirit.
Guan Yu stroked the holy beast that was born from his sword. In Guan Yu's view, this is the orthodox 4 spirits of heaven and earth, compared to Lu Biyu's golden dragon. The fire dragon is much stronger, although it is very weak now. The dragon scales are not full, but the dragon is a dragon. Guan Yu clearly feels the growing power on his body, and the sublimation of a realm has begun. It is said that Guan Yu doesn't know what a divine beast is at all. The holy beast is completely his delusion, and it is true that all things are animism, but the birth of a green dragon from the Qinglong Yangyu knife is completely a dream. But because the knife was cultivated by Guan Yu wants the knife to be like that, so the knife has become like that. The so-called dragon is just Guan Yu's own strength. And the so-called power is just Guan Yu's own hidden power. But sometimes such hints are needed. For example, now Guan Yu feels as if he is possessed by a green dragon. His strength has increased sharply, and his power is becoming more and more huge, even as long as he opens his eyes and looks at each other. The soldiers on the opposite side do not dare to act rashly. This is the way he has always wanted. Enter the city. Guan Yu, who had closed his eyes and realized it, had stopped the sound of knives and guns in his ears, and opened his eyes slightly to look at Wei Yang waiting beside him. When Guan Yu's eyes swept to Wei Yang suddenly felt a heaviness, and his previous awe of Huang Zhong had completely fallen to Guan Yu when he saw Guan Yu's amazing power. Hey! Wei Yang looked at Guan Yu, who closed his eyes again in awe. He finally understood why everyone mentioned Guan Yu with a look of awe when he came. This sense of oppression like facing the gods, worthy of General Guan. Looking at the gap, Wei Yang bowed his head in awe. Guan Yu didn't know how much shock what he did this time gave the people of the world. First of all, he opened his jaw and brought 5,000 people, not the 3,000 people who were half-hanging scouts who were transferred by Guan Yu's personal guards. That is to say, Guan Yu first did a single person to single-handedly defeat an integrated legion, directly defeated the legion head-on, and then attacked the city and directly smashed the city wall. This is also why Wei Yang will fear Guan Yu, because Guan Yu doesn't know much about himself, but Wei Yang has understood what is going on and has done 2 amazing events that no one has been able to complete since ancient times, which can't help but Wei Yang not admire. In Wei Yang's view, maybe Huang Zhong is not inferior to Guan Yu, and even surpasses Guan Yu, but Huang Zhong does not have Guan Yu's domineering. This kind of power. However, Wei Yang is also a little sorry. Guan Yu did not directly kill Zhong Zhou. If he killed, it would be more perfect. One person singled out the integrated elite core of 5,000 people, and it was still an enemy general or a master of internal qi, killing the enemy's leader in seconds with one knife and cutting off the handsome flag, which was simply shocking. On the other side, several ribs were broken, and Zhong Zhou, whose arm had been broken, finally joined Zhou Lan with the support of his subordinates. Both of them had a bitter face, and now in this situation, as long as Guan Yu is not stupid, he will definitely lead troops to attack Leilang, and the Leilang defenders are only 1,000, and there are no generals who can take it to defend the city. And it is estimated that the loss may be said to be 10***. Chang'e, you're okay. Zhou Lan listened to Zhong Zhou explain yesterday's incident with a helpless face. Someone would have such courage, directly rushed alone and almost killed Zhong Zhou. There is no way to go to anyone when encountering this kind of thing. The other party is no longer a surprise. Normally it seems that this is simply to die, okay? I can't die. Zhong Zhou smiled bitterly and said, Guan Yunchang is indeed a brave general in the world, and the lack of courage, and wisdom is not enough to accomplish anything, and we all underestimate him too much. But you. Zhou Lan looked at the rib stubble sticking out of his chest, which is different from not being able to die. If you don't care about it, you will die soon. Don't worry. Zhong Zhou raised his only moving right hand, and a black inner chi appeared on his hand. Fortunately, if it weren't for the breakthrough in battle, I would probably have been killed by it, and if I go back like this, the Lord can also understand what we have suffered. I hope we can escape punishment. Chapter 268 The Greenhouse in the Eyes of the Ancients. Chen Shi turned left and right to a farmland in the city. Well, the farmland was actually a dozen hastily built big houses, but a lot of glass windows were installed, and there were a lot of coal stoves in it. What's the situation? Chen Shi pushed open the door, and a warm wind with a sour smell of a coal stove, plus a feeling of chest tightness hit directly. I'm going. What are you doing, Chu Hanmu? Chen Shi dragged Chu Hanmu with a blood-red face and killed him from inside. Zichuan, what are you doing? Cookie was furious. I'm observing. What observation do you observe? And if you continue to observe, you will die. Didn't you find that you stayed in it and felt dizzy and tinnitus? Isn't it difficult to breathe? Chen Shi angrily rebuked. Hey, how do you know? Cookie was stunned and said, it's much better to blow the wind when you say it. What's going on? Well, that's right. After all, this method violates the laws of spring planting, autumn harvest, and winter storage, and it should be a little dangerous. After all, we don't have the Son of Heaven to move forward. Chen Shi hasn't explained what gas poisoning is. This guy has already explained it himself. Okay, you're right, that's pretty much the case anyway. Did the vegetables I let you grow germinate? Chen-Shi dragged the cookie out as soon as he entered, so he didn't look at those places much. The vegetables have grown, and there is something wrong with the peach trees and apricot trees that you asked me to transplant with the soil. They only bloom and do not bear fruit. Cookie said a little in horror. This is not reasonable at all, not to mention that flowering at this time is scary enough, not to mention that the flowering is not fruitful. Didn't I give you some when you thinned the flowers? How can it not be fruitful? Chen-Shi said with a surprised face. How can it not be fruitful? Even if you don't order it, there should be 1 or 2 fruits. Zichuan, do you think we are against the ghosts and gods by doing this? Peach trees and apricot trees only bloom and do not bear fruit. Is this a warning from God not to do this? Cookie said with a look of awe. Chen-Shi rolled his eyes. This is all about something, but it seems to be quite terrifying for the ancients. Let go of your heart, I will carry it if something really goes wrong. By the way, there are still a few peach trees, don't let them bloom. When I got married, the petal rain still wanted these things. Chen-Shi glanced at Cookie contemptuously. He was so timid, he had the courage to say that he would squat with him to the Shunnong temple 2 days ago, and now he was actually scared like this. This ancient man TSK tilde. You want peach blossoms to sprinkle petal rain when you get married? You are really luxurious. Cookie exclaimed. Such a big dozen houses have been built. And so many crystals are installed on the wall, and hundreds of millions of dollars are smashed just to watch the petal rain in winter. Are you crazy? How good it would be if you got married in the spring with hundreds of millions of dollars. Get out. It would be strange if the marriage time of the prince could be changed. I can only get married in the leap November. There are only 50 leap November in 5,000 years. It's not easy to meet a good day. Chen-Shi rejected Cookie's offer without hesitation. After all, it didn't really cost hundreds of millions of money. I can't understand you rich people. Forget it. Let's say I'm good at it. When he said this, Cookie obviously had a sour tone, and his best farming was actually surpassed by others. Tell me. I'm listening. But I think it's best for you to do what I said, and it's better to open the windows for ventilation after a while, otherwise. It is also very possible that one day you will die. Chen-Shi spread his hands and said helplessly to Cookie, saying enough words to scare Cookie to death. I'm going. I don't do it anymore. You want to challenge the growth law of life, why do you pull me up? I don't do it. Cookie was angry when he heard that he would die. Why didn't he say that it would be life-threatening when he said it before, and that growing a vegetable would be life-threatening? So I'll go with it. I told you that you will be fine according to my method. You obviously didn't open the window on time to ventilate. Okay. Chen-Shi tugged at the collar of the cookie and said, saying that Chen-Shi has been much less sleepy recently, and the whole person is no longer as close to falling asleep at any time as Liu Bei was in the early days of Liu Bei's rise. Tell me, what the hell is going on? What happened to those black stones? Cookie turned his head to look at Chen-Shi and said, that black stone is also wood, but it is wood that has been buried for millions of years and then compacted, so it can be burned, but there are other things in it. If it is not completely burned, it will produce a kind of qi, and then that qi can kill you. Chen-Shi didn't like to give Cookies all carbon monoxide or something, so he briefly introduced it. You directly said that it has been buried for millions of years, and when you dig it out and burn it, you will have resentment, I know. Cookie analyzed simply and roughly. Okay. Chen-Shi silently wiped a handful of sweat from his forehead. Tell me why the peach blossoms bloom, why most of them don't bear fruit, and why the seeds are germinating now. Cookie asked another question. Because of the temperature and humidity, the temperature in spring is high, so they will germinate, and we are now imitating the spring climate to let them germinate, just like you have been to Jiangnan, where you can also grow vegetables in winter. This is an easy explanation. Chen-Shi said that Cookie can understand. As for flowering or not bearing fruit, the simple way is that flowers are also divided into yin and yang, the same as people, and the current situation can only be done by ourselves. Unlike spring, there are no bees, butterflies, and the like. Okay, I understand. That is to say, a matchmaker, a peach blossom actually has to pay attention to these things. Cookie said that he understood that although the explanation was unreasonable enough, as long as he could stop Cookie from continuing to do it. How's the bean sprouts? Chen-Shi changed to a safe topic and continued to ask, saying that this thing should have been done a long time ago. Isn't it a dish to eat without food? Soybeans have never been lacking in all dynasties, and they are something to feed horses. This is not difficult. I found a doctor and sent out a lot. But are you sure this thing can be eaten? I remember that I read in the Shunnong Baikao Sutra that this thing is a medicinal material, used to replenish qi, and medicinal materials cannot be eaten indiscriminately. Cookie said that this thing was stress-free. He found an old doctor and gave him a wooden basin full of black beans and bean sprouts, and ordered someone to bring it to Chen Shi. Chen Shi looked at a pot of black-skinned bean sprouts, which did not grow big but were definitely pollution-free products. The problem was that they had taken root, and the green had become bitter. Why not use it as medicine? Forget it, let's go to the sun-dried pharmaceutical. Bring it to me when it turns yellow. In other words, you can't use some brains. Radish seeds can also be sent. Mung beans can also be sent. Soybeans can also be sent. Chen Shi said helplessly, you can find some edible seeds and send them to see which one is delicious.
Hey, yes.
Cookie was obviously surrounded by black bean sprouts that had been distributed for 2,000 years, and he didn't think that he could send anything else. Others? What about other things I asked you to plant? Is the fungus planted by rotten wood successful?
Chen Shi asked curiously.
All the others are planted. Mushrooms, fungus and other things are all over the mountains. Just spend some money. Why bother? I requisition the land to study and plant all kinds of vegetables that shouldn't take a long time.
Cookie said with an unhappy face, very dissatisfied with Chen Shi's waste.
Go with you, anyway. If you can't grow what I want, you will be miserable, and now I will recycle all the greenhouses allocated to you. Chen Shi raised his eyebrows and said unhappily, anyway, it is not impossible to play without cookies. Now cookies have a bunch of students from Mount Tai. Chapter 369 Auspicious and Troublesome. After Chen Shi and Cookie separated, they began to think about whether there was a problem with their design. Peach blossoms bloomed all over the branches in winter, and the petals fluttered in the world, which was auspicious in this period anyway. Well, Chen Shi is just to create auspiciousness. He is sure that Li Yu and Guosai's people will definitely come on the day of his wedding. Then the people of the Yang family in Guanxi will also come, and the people of the same little emperor will also come. Since these people will come, then I'm sorry not to give them a big play. However, Chen Shi is also worried about what big problems will be after this big drama. This is Mount Tai, and it is under Liu Bei's rule. When the princes of the world have names and surnames, they will basically send people to watch the ceremony. Then the rain of flowers and rain will inevitably fall into the eyes of all the princes, and it will also spread to all corners of the Han dynasty. There are disadvantages and benefits. The biggest benefit is such a real auspiciousness witnessed by the princes of the world, so combined with the prosperity under Liu Bei's current rule, the people of the world can't help but think about it. The overlord of the Central Plains is rising eastward. It may not be impossible to turn into a dragon and settle the world, and it may not be impossible for the sky to congratulate him. In short, after doing this, the people's sentiment under the rule will definitely rise, and some of the war-riding factions also have to think more. For some families, they have to think about it when fighting against Liu Bei. After all, 200 years ago, when Liu Xiu was a time of evil sects, there were many things that were not true, and it is impossible to say that now it is the heavens that have sent the wise Lord to sweep the world. Of course, as long as there is such a time, it is estimated that even if Liu Bei is willing to take the other party to Fenggao, Liu Xie will not follow. As long as Cao Cao brings the little emperor to Chen Liu, then Chong'e will be at peace outside. The pattern of Shun Sheng's death is nailed. As long as this pattern is nailed, Liu Xie will inevitably fall out with Cao Cao in order to fight for power and profit. So even if Cao Cao is a loyal minister, he will be forced to act as a traitor. At that time, a few more strokes will save the self-proclaimed loyal ministers of the Han dynasty, and the edict will be in Liu Bei's hands. The flagpole of Dai and the Han dynasty was held by Liu Bei in his hand, and he had the name of benevolence, thinking that no one in history had Chen Zhen and Xu Shu. Yi Ji, Wei Yang, and others came to vote. If it was not surprising to hold these three things now, Liu Bei would directly consolidate the foundation in a short period of time. The disadvantages of this matter are also great. Liu Bei's strength itself is quite strong. It can be said that when the time comes, the princes and envoys who have witnessed the prosperity of Mount Tai will definitely raise Liu Bei's strength to the level of hegemony, and then there will be a wave of rain from the sky, and Liu Bei will be a thorn in the side. In addition, the current Liu Bei is still a Han clan member recognized by the Zongjing mansion. This advantage is much greater. Maybe Liu Bei, who was targeted, was directly attacked by the crowd. Later, Chen Shi carefully analyzed it and found that there seemed to be no possibility of being attacked by the crowd. He was in a good place, just next to a Yuan Shao and Cao Cao, and when the time came, he would face Yuan Shao and Cao Cao head-on, but not to mention that Cao Cao belonged to the kind of guy who was not cheap and resolute. Just say Yuan Shao, Gongsun Zon did not die. Yuan Shao will never look south. In this way, this form is much more subtle, even if it is auspicious from the sky. At that time, there will be no problem in being feared by all the princes. Cao Cao will never challenge Liu Bei head-on for an auspicious sign. Even if there is enough strength now, Zun Yu and the others will try their best to persuade Cao Cao under the search for stability. As for Yuan Shao, he will definitely guard the front line of Qingju and Jizhou, and will never provoke trouble, because this time is not appropriate, although he defeated Gongsun Zon, but it is still very, very far away from occupying Yuzhou. In other words, When the time comes, it will only cause hidden dangers, and most of the benefits can be obtained directly. With these thoughts, Chen Shi no longer took the hidden dangers to heart. After all, as long as the foundation was consolidated fast enough and the development was fast enough, those hidden dangers may never have a chance to break out in their lives. Jian Yong and Liu Yang sent a post to the princes of the world as envoys, and the first stop was Cao Cao. Fortunately, Cao Cao had defeated Yuan Shu, chased the other party all the way, and grabbed countless grains and grass. Plus the relationship with Liu Bei when he was in Hulao Pass was not bad, so after chatting for a while, he promised to send someone to watch the ceremony. In fact, Cao Cao also knows very well that going to Chen Shi's wedding is just an excuse, more of a contact and feelings. Liu Bei is now obviously in a mess with Xu Meng, and Cao Cao and Yuan Shao. Liu Biao is also obviously not so good. The two largest alliances before are already a little unsustainable, and it is appropriate to take this opportunity to talk. How about everyone who is willing to go to Mount Tai as an envoy when the time comes? Cao Cao put the invitation on the table and asked with a smile. The latest information about Yuan Shu made Cao Cao in a good mood. Yuan Shu was ready to move the administrative office from Pingyu, Runan to Shouchuan, Zhejiang, too far away from Liu Bei and Cao Cao. Lord, I am willing to go. Chen Kun and Shi Jizai stood up at the same time and said, "Hey, you too." Cao Cao was a little surprised. Why did two rebels want to go to Mount Tai this time? Could it be that there was something he didn't know in it, and he couldn't help but flash a strange color in his eyes? Lord, Chen Zichuan is also a child of the Chen family in Yingchuan, although I don't really want to admit it. Chen Kun sighed and said. Cao Cao was stunned. Chen Shi was a member of the Chen family in Yingchuan. He always thought that Chen Shi was just born in Yingchuan and was surnamed Chen. After all, if he was a child of a noble family, Chen Shi's ability to show now should not be a young and unknown person. Zun Yu and Zun Yu looked at each other, and it was indeed a little surprising that an unknown ruthless man appeared on their own territory. In that case, please wait for a long article at that time. Cao Cao nodded. This kind of family etiquette is indispensable. As a certain world-famous figure, the head of the family does not appear at the wedding is the person of the family. Lord, I'll go there then. I'm very interested in Mount Tai. Shi Jizai glanced at Chen Kun helplessly, originally thinking that no one had robbed the job, but was robbed by Chen Kun with justification. Jizai, what are you going to do? Changwen can represent our Yangju and the Chen family. If you go, I will be missing two wise men who give advice. Cao Cao looked at Shi Jizai curiously. Let's accurately understand the strength of Qingzhou. And by the way, strengthen our ability. Qingzhou's civil and military affairs are not weaker than ours. A flash of light flashed in Shi Jizai's eyes. He was going to steal talents. To expand his talent reserves, 3 storage slots, plus a talent in use, he planned to choose the 3 most suitable talents in Qingzhou. Cao Cao turned his head to look at Zun Yu, who was sitting in the first seat on the left, and saw Zun Yu nodding slightly. So Cao Cao agreed to let Shi Jizai also go to Mount Tai without thinking too much. Chapter 270 Find something for those who have nothing to do. After Cao Cao arranged these things, he thought about his current territory, and then thought about his father, and touched his beard with pride. His father's son, who was called a trick-or-treater, has now become one of the most famous princes in the world, and he has just defeated Yuan Shu, which can be regarded as a success. It's time to take my father back. If my father knew my current situation, he would probably be very satisfied. My uncles, brothers would definitely be shocked. A smile appeared on Cao Cao's dark face. What is it to return to his hometown? His realm has been transcendent. Signaling Zun Yu and the others to leave, Cao Cao began to arrange for his men to welcome his father to Chen Liu, while Wancheng was handed over to Cao Ren and Cheng Yu to guard, and he also planned to return to Chen Liu with a large army. Jizai, it's up to you this time. Hurry up and wash off Feng Xiao's talent, and wash what you can't use. Cheng Yu said quickly. Jizai, let's put it this way. We basically know the celestial phenomena in the past 2 years. It is obvious that the celestial phenomena in Qingzhou are not normal, and the normal year will become a small harvest year in the area of Mount Tai, and the small harvest year will become a harvest year, and this scope only covers Liu Bei's rule. Zun Yu didn't say anything more, and the rest of the words were definitely in his heart. I will pay attention to this talent. If I really have this spiritual talent that can change the celestial phenomena on a large scale, I will definitely not miss it. Shi Jizai nodded and said, when the time comes, I will record the spiritual talents of each of them and choose 3 to bring back. This time I will slip over and rely on Gongda's spiritual talent, and I will vacate all 3 positions. Well, sometimes it seems a little stupid. It's okay to be a little stupid, plus a protective color. It's hard for anyone to notice you. But speaking of which, Chen Zichuan is actually from the same hometown as us. Why haven't I heard of it before? Zun Yu also knew that Shi Jizai's approach was right. A few of them were here. They could change at any time, and if they went to a place like Mount Tai once, they might not be able to go a second time. Zun Yu tugged at his mouth. a little depressed. But it was his uncle who said this, and he couldn't refute it. He just pretended to be stupid and not really stupid. Chen Zichuan's wife is the legitimate daughter of the Fan family. It is also after the famous family, which means that it is not as simple as the long article said. Cheng Yu curled his lips and said, he didn't get along with a guy like Chen Kun who was arrogant all over his body. This is really strange. He married the daughter of a prosperous family. We haven't heard of it. It is said that in terms of identity, he should also be a direct descendant. Shi Jizai said curiously, although he was not from a family, he still had some understanding of the situation of the family, and it was necessary to be in the right place. Who knows? Maybe the Chen family deliberately hid one. After all, at this time, hum. Cheng Yu said strangely, so that Zun Yu and the two of them couldn't get off the stage, so they had to laugh dryly and round the scene. Chen Shi looked at the robe Chen Lan made for him. I don't know what to say. As a wife, I forgot my husband's formal attire. As a result, Chen Lan, as a concubine, remembered to embroider a princely robe with gold patterns on a black background by her own hands. Should I say that this is an age gap? You must know that if the wife is ready, the princely robe embroidered by Chen Lan can only be used to press the bottom of the box. The embroidery is good. Try it on me. Chen Shi patted Chen Lan on the shoulder and said, this kind of thing is still difficult to wear, it's up to you. Husband, let's wear it then. Chen Lan shook her head and folded her clothes and put them away, not to mention whether she exceeded the limit or not. It was just the hard work she spent. You must know that these gold patterns and clouds were embroidered little by little according to the book, so she didn't want Chen Shi to wear them before she got married. Try it out. Maybe it doesn't fit. Chen Shi said with a hippie smile, but Chen Lan's face instantly turned bad, and she pouted and looked at Chen Shi. Well, I said the wrong thing. Chen Shi said helplessly, but it feels so strange. Don't you rest every day? When did you string the embroidered wedding dress and my robe, and the beads of the prince's costumes? Are you so idle? I remember when you were resting. I work hard to embroider clothes at night. Chen Lan said proudly. She is not like Fan Jian who does nothing. She knows her identity very well, although Chen Shi spoils her very much, and she has also shared hardships with Chen Shi, but there is a saying called marrying a concubine and marrying a color. She stared at Fan Jian for a long time and found that her breasts could be fuller than Fan Jian, and the others were 1/2 pound and 8 tails, but Fan Jian was only 15, and she was 20. You keep working hard. Madam's paperwork has come down. You can rest assured, and it's Mrs. Hu. Chen Shi smiled and said, he also remembered that Chen Lan was not very slow to embroider things, but he actually needed his reminder to finish making the wedding dress, and it seemed that he was embroidering the princely clothes he wore at the beginning. On the other hand, Jioshu and Liu Yi are sorting out Shiliang's intelligence. As for the work Liu Bei arranged for Liu Yi has already accompanied Jioshu to sort out Shiliang information while collecting and sorting out. Anyway, the so-called government affairs template is not something that can be dealt with in a moment. Liu Bei will definitely not make a surprise inspection, and Liu Yi does not need to change his usual leisurely work attitude. You're too fake. Liu Yi looked at the information transmitted by Shiliang, and actually ordered Ma Teng Han Sui to go to Qin Wang. It's very true. If Li Yu and the others definitely think that it was the imperial decree issued by His Majesty, if His Majesty must think that Li Yu and the others falsely conveyed the imperial decree, anyway, the two sides will not be open and honest. They will only remember this matter behind their backs, and if they have the opportunity, they will be the general ledger. Jioshu said nonchalantly, doesn't your Majesty think so? Seeing that Liu Yi was speechless, Jioshu pretended to be stunned on his face and choked Liu Yi half dead. Well, Li Yu also has such an idea. This is inevitable. Shiliang is their hometown, and it is inevitable that they want to occupy that place. Liu Yi said with a contemptuous face. He saw it clearly. Jioshu, this bastard, didn't take Liu Xie of Chang'an seriously. So I'm helping them. Look at how bad it is to let Han Sui and Ma Teng continue to fight, and it's winter again, and the Chong people are coming again, so it's good to let Ma Teng and Han Sui take the Chong people to save your Majesty. Saying that, Jioshu wiped the tears that did not exist in the corners of his eyes with his sleeves. You are ruthless. Liu Yi said that he was willing to bow down. It's nothing. Ma Teng and Han Sui are fighting in the nest. I found a righteousness for them, and with such a big help from the Chong people, it is estimated that it will not be difficult to save the little emperor. The hypocrisy on Jioshu's face made Liu Yi despise him again and again, but he had to admire Jioshu for being able to say such words. Forget it. I'll also add to the fire. Han Sui and Ma Teng are definitely not opponents of Li Ji and Guosai. Even if there are Chong people, they are also delivering food. Liu Yi waved his hand, really weak at Jioshu's expression. Defeating Han Sui and Ma Teng, Li Ji and Guosai in the absence of threats from all sides, civil strife is already inevitable, and there is no need to speed up this process. Jioshu directly vetoed what Liu Yi wanted to say.
He didn't want to play Liu Xie to death. He was going to play the Yang family to death, and directly kicked out a Yang family who might become a giant like the Yuan family in Yongliang Hanzhong before the Yang family's brain reacted, and never wake up.